Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was the Son of Loki and Grandson of Hades Part 1. Before we start, please go support Kabal13 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Prologue Chapter 0. Miki Hyoudou had been through several problems in his life. But having such a strict father was above all very annoying. That old man who seemed not to age even a little almost seemed like a 30-year-old man despite his advanced age. But without a doubt the biggest problem came after that crazy night of drinking. She was incredibly resistant to alcohol due to her paternal heritage, but that handsome black-haired man had to arrive with that supposed drink of the gods and invite her to drink. There were several drinks, a long conversation where he confessed that his wife left him after his son was murdered by someone he considered a great and old friend. She told him how her father forbade her many things, including having a boyfriend. Of course, by the time they realized it, it was already the fifth bottle when the effects became known, although surprisingly, if someone else took even one drink, they would fall drunk instantly. After they were both drunk, the thing they least expected to do that night happened. Each one wanted to drown their sorrows in alcohol, but it ended in a passionate night. The next day the hangover was really horrible. Of course she knew who the man was with whom she had her little adventure, but as long as her father didn't find out there wouldn't be any problems, right? Well, life taught him the worst of lessons when on the fourth day of the party he started to feel dizzy all the time and vomited. Days later he was very hungry, but the worst came when a certain monthly ailment did not come, then he knew. She was pregnant and the worst thing was that her father found out, but it was thanks to her beloved mother that her father did nothing to her, although he looked at her badly and even more so, demanding the name of the subject who impregnated her, and obviously it was to demand her life. She never told him. No matter what he told her, she never revealed her name or anything that said who she was. Her father's servants, those men who dressed in black so to speak, helped her a lot with everything she needed. While she enjoyed the only garden in her father's home with her mother, her stepmother was not the same, although her stepmother fell into the perverted clutches of her own father. When her uncle made advances on her, she sent him packing so to speak. After all the suffering that was labor, she saw him. Those beautiful honey-colored eyes of immeasurable beauty, his brown hair, his gaze full of innocence and his smile as beautiful as a sunrise, his precious son was born. After much thought, I called him Issei because he was his first son and probably his only son. Her father arrived where she was with her beloved Issei, along with his huge dog, which did something that shocked her father, and since then for some reason of calling Issei a shame he called him the greatest of his pride and his heir. Then his father found out about Issei's paternal lineage, and to say that he was very angry was an understatement, although it was enough to see his grandson smile to literally forget his anger. Whenever that happened his mother laughed a lot. Little Issei was loved by all of his father's servants to the point that they were all more than willing to die for their young love. One day her cousin came accompanied by her followers. Let's say that family problems on her father's side were very common because her cousin, when she met her, the first thing she did was ask for her head. Yes, family love, but it was for that very reason that she was so worried about the safety of her little Issei, who was already 4 years old. Once the purple-haired girl saw her uncle she smiled. Finally that stupid war would end. 240 years of war between her knights against the ghosts of her uncle was going to end. But at one moment she felt a powerful presence behind the god of the underworld, only to notice a small brown hair and the eyes that she considered the most beautiful she had ever seen, until she noticed that this presence came from the little boy, even more so when she noticed the power from which it came. Cosmos and Jotun magic. The child's father was a giant of Jotunheim. I couldn't explain how Hades showed so much affection to that little boy, knowing how much Hades hates other races that are not from the Greek pantheon. Well, honestly, he hates almost everyone since Zeus touched his wife Persephone. Her thoughts died when she saw the little boy's look of curiosity and shyness towards her. She smiled at him with genuine happiness, and the boy responded with a radiant smile before raising his arms to his grandfather, who gladly took his beloved grandson. The peace between Athena and Hades was signed, and Hades's main reason was for his spoiled grandson. Athena was very happy and at the same time dismayed, but she let it go. Peace was more important. Hades had told his beloved daughter to wait in her room while his guest arrived to her kingdom. When she felt the presence of 4 of her guests she smiled. If he refused, blood would flow. If he accepted, he would forgive his existence. From a distance I could feel the slight fear of that man, although not only him, the other 2 men in the group had a certain degree of fear. The only woman in the group was totally calm about all this. When his guests arrived, they went to his living room. Well, I must say that you are very difficult to find. I had to ask your daughter to contact you, said Hades. Well, being invited by the god of death of the Greek pantheon certainly gives some fear. Don't get me wrong if my children came with me and my daughter's pet, but believe me, I certainly don't trust you, said the black-haired man. Daughter, you can come in, Hades said out loud, ignoring what Loki had said. Then he saw her, he searched for her like crazy, and he would be lying if he said he didn't fall madly in love with her, but then he felt that power behind her right next to his beloved brunette was a little boy. I want you to meet someone, Miki Hyoudou said to Loki, and then looked at the little boy. Say hello to your dad, Issei. The little boy came out behind his mother timidly as he looked at the man next to the huge wolf who, like Cerberus, bowed to him along with Garm, Hela's hound, who looked at the little boy in shock. Issei looked at the man carefully with great shyness. Loki, when he finally understood what was happening, knelt down next to the little brown-haired boy and opened his arms. Son, he said in a warm and calm voice, very rare in him since a few years ago when the Issei transformed his son Vari into a wolf and forced him to kill his brother Narfi, to later use his entrails to tie him to 3 stones and pour snake venom on him. When he most needed Sigyn's help, she turned her back on him and sided with the Issei. It is true that he killed Balder, but he did it to protect Odin, since Balder planned to sell information about Asgard to Surtur only for Thor and Odin to die, so he could take the throne of Asgard. His train of thought died as he felt the embrace of little Issei, who began to cry, while Loki took him in his arms and began to lull him, causing the brown-haired boy to fall asleep and then handing him over to Miki Hyoudou. Hades looked at this and spoke seriously. My daughter is a demigod, her mother is now in the garden, and I honestly don't plan on bringing her here with a god of lies, but there is something I must demand of you. You must stay here in the underworld with my daughter and grandson for eternity. Loki looked at him in shock, but then when he saw his beloved and the fruit of his love, he smiled at her. I would be more than happy to stay if it is for my son and my beloved, Miki, Loki said as his daughter then stepped forward. I don't trust Zeus or that bastard Odin, but I do trust you. I'll stay by my little brother's side, and I think Fenrir agrees with me, Hela said, and the wolf nodded. I understand, but there is one more condition, said Hades. Say it, although I have an idea of what it is about. I will leave the Greek pantheon and you the Nordic pantheon, and we will form our own pantheon, the pantheon of the underworld, said Hades very seriously. I can bring Helheim here, Odin doesn't know it, but the roots of Yggdrasil obey me, and therefore I can drag my kingdom to yours and make it one, in exchange for being by my little brother's side. It is a reasonable price to give you power over my kingdom, said Hela with a smile. Deal, with this we are you, me, Izanami of Shinto, her Kala and her husband Negril of the Sumerians, Mictlantecuhtli and his wife Mtekacihutl of the Mexicas, and my niece Athena, said Hades calmly. Gods from other pantheons joined you to form a new one, not bad, and I guess this is all because of my little brother, right? Hela said. Indeed Hela, indeed, although I must say that it was difficult to convince the lords of Mictlan, Osiris refused, so I couldn't do much, but at least Zeus can't enter my kingdom again, not even Poseidon can, so I'm calm that my grandson is safe from the Greeks. Odin wouldn't come to Hades for anything, so he's safe from it. The demons and fallen angels can't come here either, so my beloved grandson can grow up safe, said Hades calmly. Vari is dead as well as Narfi. I only have Fenrir left along with my nephews Hadi and Skoll, Jormungandr and my dear younger brother Issei. I will do whatever it takes to keep them safe, said Hela. I agree, well, come and settle into this palace and welcome to Hades, he said with a smile. Everything went as expected, he only needed to train his beloved grandson to succeed him. After all, Cerberus has only bowed before him and his grandson, who he must admit is probably the next most powerful god if he manages to master his 2 inheritances, his and his father Loki's. End of chapter. In this story, Issei is the son of Loki and Miki Hyoudou, who is the daughter of Hades and her human mother, who married Hades when she fell in love with him when he visited Japan, so that Izanami, goddess of death of Shinto, would join her new faction, although at that time she had other motives which changed when Issei was born. Issei is part human, part demigod and part Jotun giants of Norse mythology, and because of his human part, he is the current Sekiryuite. Athena here is identical to Sayori from Saint Seiya, and Hades is also the same as the one from Saint Seiya. Several things from that franchise will be used here. Issei has an armor that Hades had made especially for the little one when he grows up. Athena became fond of Issei and will protect him from his father Zeus. Zeus tried in the past to court Miki Hyoudou, but she attacked him and warned him not to bother her, or he would suffer the fate that Zeus's grandfather had, and gave birth to Aphrodite castrating him, so he incredibly gave up, but holds a grudge against her. Hades has perfectly hidden Issei's birth, so no one knows about it other than his subordinates and direct allies. Zeus will find out and try to kill him, but it will end badly for him. Chapter 01. A young man with brown hair and amber eyes walked calmly to the academy where his studies would begin today, the Kuo Academy. It must be said that it took a long time to convince his grandfather, but his mother and half-sister advocated for him, convincing the chestnut-haired grandfather under the condition that he live with his mother and sister, since she did not want him to be alone despite the chestnut-haired man. He arrived at the door of the academy where a pair of black-haired girls were receiving the students along with two others, one was white-haired and the other blue-haired. He approached a pair of black-haired students and spoke to them. "Excuse the inconvenience, but do you know where the address of the academy is? I am an exchange student and I am coming from Scandinavia," said the brown-haired boy, receiving a nod from both of them. "We were informed of your arrival and we were expecting you. I am Sana Shitori, the student council president, and this is Tsubaki Shinra, the vice president," the young black-haired girl with short hair answered with her stoic face. "Nice to meet you, my name is Hyoudou Issei," he introduced himself, and the brunette looked at him a little intrigued. "Forgive my rudeness in asking, but when I was sent to receive the exchange student from Europe, I thought it would be someone born there, so are you half European?" he asked with genuine curiosity as they walked to the office of the director of the Kuo Academy. "Indeed, my father Lokla is European, and my mother is half Japanese and half Greek," said the young brown-haired boy calmly as he followed the pair of young girls. "I see, but why Hyoudou and not La, if I may ask?" the brunette questioned. "Because my father is a fan of Japanese and decided to give my mother the right to carry his surname. My maternal grandfather does not have a surname, and my maternal grandmother was a Hyoudou, so let's say I have very little Japanese." He laughed a little and nervously while scratching his cheek. The brunette nodded, pleased to get information from the young brunette, and just at that moment they arrived at the director's office, so without further ado they entered. The chestnut received his documents and was assigned to his class, so without further ado the pair accompanied him to his classroom, wishing him a good day and telling him that if he needed anything, he would ask them for help. The teacher asked the class to be quiet and asked a brown-haired boy to come in. He came in and stepped forward to write his own name on the blackboard. "Nice to meet you, I'm Hyoudou Issei, I come from Scandinavia and I hope to get along with you," he said without further ado. "Excuse me Hyoudou-kun, you said you came from Scandinavia, but your name is Japanese," said a pink-haired girl. "My father is from Scandinavia, my mother is half Japanese on my grandmother's side and half Greek on my grandfather's side," said the brown-haired boy smiling, and then saw how a boy with glasses raised his hand. "Why the hell does a pretty-faced boy come here to Cow Academy when there are so many in the city?" he said annoyed while a bald man next to him nodded. Issei smiled and replied happily, "Thank you very much for the compliment, and as for the academy, my mother studied here in her youth and made me enter this academy." Then he laughed sadly while scratching his cheek. "My grandfather did not agree, but he could not refuse either." "What are your tastes?" asked a brunette sitting next to the pink-haired girl. Issei looked at her and then smiled. "I like to play the guitar and read a lot, also martial arts and kendo. I'm a fan of baseball," he said, while the brunette looked at him a little more interested. The brunette with glasses looked at him with a malicious smile. "What do you like more, breasts or hips?" This incredibly did not faze the brunette. "A woman is more than her body, really what I like most about a woman is her way of being," said the brunette scratching his cheek embarrassed after saying it, but that earned a dreamy look from most of the girls in the classroom. "Hear you then," in an attempt to embarrass the brown-haired boy looked at his crotch, but then smiled maliciously. "Wow, a size larger than average he said with a mischievous smile. Issei looked at her questioningly wanting to know what the hell she was talking about, while some had already blushed because of that. "What are you talking about?" He raised his eyebrow, but the teacher only touched his forehead as he tried to stop the young man from asking that. "From your member," she said while smiling maliciously, but she didn't expect Issei to just open his eyes in shock and then shake his head to the side as a sign of not understanding. "What? You have superpowers like in manga?" he said, and Aiko almost fell to the floor because of such a stupid question. "Forget it Hyoudou, I think you're too innocent for your own good," she said as she sat down disappointed. No doubt she expected another type of reaction and not that poor expression of confusion on the brunette. It must be said that no one else wanted to ask a question because of that. "Well, young man, you can sit in front of Motohama-kun, he's the boy with glasses," said the teacher as Motohama raised his hand slightly. After lunchtime, the chestnut was invited by the pair of boys who had been annoyed by his arrival to go spy on the girls, but for some reason the three of them ended up eating in the classroom while he told them how his life had been in Europe and that his grandfather was a bit grumpy but had a good heart. Itsuda and Motohama did not understand how the hell going out to spy ended up in this, and even less how the hell they ended up talking about the brown-haired boy's life in Europe. Although it did end up calling their curiosity as he apparently had a personal maid who was in charge of helping him, and these in their perverted minds plotted to contaminate the brown-haired boy's mind, but unfortunately he did not understand any of that and ended up changing to another topic that for some reason interested them. The brown-haired boy ended up inviting them to his house to get to know each other better, and there they would make their move to pervert the brown-haired boy's mind. At the end of classes a limousine stopped outside the academy and a pretty-looking blonde maid got out, together with a butler who easily fell into the typical cliché of a tough-looking gray-haired old man, although it was a relief that his name was not Sebastian. The butler introduced himself to the perverted duo as Vincent Louvain and the maid as Agatha Louvain, since she was the daughter of the main butler. The duo was impressed by the beauty of such an absurdly beautiful maid that they almost bled from the nose if it weren't for the fact that Vincent invited them to get into the limousine, where Issei was waiting for them somewhat anxiously. They didn't know it, but technically, they would be the first friends Issei's age that he had made. After arriving at the mansion, they were shocked and even more so when they saw a young brunette woman accompanied by a beautiful maid. It must be said that the duo almost fainted when they found out that she was actually Issei's mother, and it was no wonder since she looked barely 28 years old at most. Once in the hall, the maids attended to the duo with dedication, bringing snacks, but when Issei went to the bathroom, Vincent spoke. "This is the first time the young master has brought friends to the house. I've never seen him so excited about something," he said, surprising the duo of boys, and then bowing to the two. "I appreciate you being friends with him. Please take care of the young master," he said calmly. "Ah, yes, of course, Issei is our friend, right?" Mitsuda said, the one with glasses. "Of course, Motohama, we will make your life at the academy the best," said the bald man with emotion. While with Issei, he was in the dining room looking for some snacks for his new friends when his mother arrived with a "You're good at pretending not to know what that pair is up to. They literally want to turn you into a pervert like them," said the brunette. "They are just simple humans, mother. On the other hand, I am glad to have a couple of friends of my own age. Even so, I did not expect those two to really believe that they could pervert me. I have enough with my grandfather's depraved family," he said with some displeasure, and his mother shared his thoughts. "Well, I will mold them to be better people. After all, they are just children with raging hormones. Give them something to vent and they will be more normal. Maybe Lily and Amigari are the right ones for that pair," he said with a hand on his chin, and then a couple of maids took what Issei took from the refrigerator and put it on some trays while he took a soda from a glass bottle and uncorked it. "Well, talk later, mother, there are guests to attend to," he said with a calm smile, and then turned to a kinder look and left. "He's certainly just as cunning as his father," said Miki Hyoudou, holding her forehead with a nervous smile. "Well, what can you do?" she said more calmly, going to her office. Back with Mitsuda and Motohama, they were waiting for the brown-haired boy, smiling as he arrived with some maids and plenty of food. One of them arrived with a console and put it on the television that was in the place, playing a popular zombie game that can be played by up to 4 players. That afternoon, Mitsuda and Motohama enjoyed Issei's company in his mansion like never before in their lives, as they had fun playing video games and talking about nonsense all afternoon. The next day, Issei arrived at the academy being greeted in the classroom by a couple of excited boys, mentioning that a couple of girls would be in his class as transfers. Murayama and Kadis looked at this with disapproval, although it didn't last, since Issei seemed to only talk about normal everyday topics and nothing perverted or out of the ordinary, although he gave that feeling of royalty that the same Rias Gremory gave in the academy itself. After arriving, the teacher introduced a couple of new girls. One was a blonde with blue eyes and the other a blue-haired girl with purple eyes, who introduced themselves as Amigari Lord being the blonde and Lily Von Fist being the blue-haired, giving a somewhat elegant racy to those present. The pair of girls gave something to talk about as they sat next to Mitsuda and Motohama respectively, after introducing themselves and answering a couple of questions, although the atmosphere was somewhat strange, since when Kiryu jokingly asked them their measurements, Lily answered looking at Motohama her measurements. And that was precisely the problem. Many questioned that, and to add more chaos to the situation, Amigari said the size of her breasts, looking at Mitsuda, who nodded with a perverted look that, as strange as it sounds, did not bother the girl, but rather caused her a nice blush that caused a hemorrhage in Mitsuda. No doubt the blonde did not know how lethal that was for the bald man. At lunchtime, they literally dragged a pair of perverts to a tree that was located in the courtyard and sat on a blanket to eat in a bento, while the brown-haired boy was carried by Aika, who was curious about the newcomers, as well as Murayama and Kadis, who were there more than anything to prevent Mitsuda or Motohama from trying to get too close to the pair of transfer girls. However, nothing prepared them for what they saw that day. "Motohama-kun, say ah," said the blue-haired girl with her chopsticks, feeding the lucky boy with glasses, who blushed and, somewhat shy, ended up accepting it before the incredulous gaze of Murayama, Kadis, and the mocking gaze of Aika and Issei. "Mo Mitsuda-kun, eat more," said the blonde while feeding the lively bald man, who was blushing and literally crying with happiness. "To heaven, I definitely died and went to heaven. I'm being fed by a beautiful angel," said the bald man while smiling, causing the girl to blush and give him a small and shy tap on the shoulder with a cute shy moan. For his part, Murayama babbled things about an apocalypse and the end of the world, while his gaze seemed dead, and Kadis, he began to pray while crying with fear about the end of the world. Aika seemed amused by the situation as she watched the girls from the kendo club exaggerate their reaction, so she had to give them a couple of hits on the head for exaggerating and told them that this wouldn't be so strange since these girls weren't aware of the pair's attitude and that they shouldn't ruin the moment since it would possibly be the pair's only chance to have a girlfriend, and that They would possibly stop spying on them, so upon hearing that they calmed down, and Aika went on to look at Issei, who was looking directly at the third floor of the old academy building, looking at a certain Redeed with emerald eyes who looked at the brown-haired girl, and then turned around walking away from the window. "Oh, so little Hyoudou is going for you senpai here," said Aika, calling the attention of the two girls from the kendo club. "I think I've seen her somewhere, maybe Scandinavia," said this thoughtful man. "Ah, that's right, Rias-sama comes from Scandinavia, where Hyoudou is from," said Kat, shocked. "Rias-sama?" the brown-haired boy said, barking his head to the side, causing the pair to blush as they found the gesture the brown-haired boy made cute. "Rias Gremory, it is said that she comes from Scandinavia and is a third grader at the academy. She is in the occult club with Akeno Himejima, the other on-sama of the Kuo Academy. She is the president of the club and is also the most popular girl in the entire academy," said Aika, to receive a nod from the brown-haired boy, who looked at her attentively, although his mind was somewhere else. "So the sister of the Crimson Satan is here, hey? Not just the sister of the Mao Leviathan, if not the sister of the Mao Lucifer. This will be interesting," thought the brunette, while nodding at what Aika was saying without really paying attention to her. While at the occult club, Rias walked up to a chessboard and moved a piece, which was a pawn. "That boy, what's his name?" said the Redeed, watching the black-haired girl who was drinking tea. "The new boy? Ara did Rias but you fall in love?" he said mockingly so the Redeed would blush a little. "Akeno," she screamed, looking a little red and embarrassed. "His name is Hyoudou, Issei. Are you interested in him?" he said, moving a knight piece. "There's no doubt about it, he has a sacred gear," she said. "It's ready to move her rook." "Checkmate," she said, so the black-haired girl would stare at the board. "You have to know how to observe it more closely," said the Redeed seriously. "In your room or in your bed, you fufu," laughed the brunette, blushing. "Akeno," she screamed, completely blushing and steam coming out of her head. "You're not going to deny that he's attractive, are you?" she said, making Rissa blush even more. "On the other hand, if that's the case, what are you planning to do, Rissa?" she said, a little more serious. "Unite him to my peerage, of course, or at least make him our ally," said the Redeed seriously. Ara, do you want it for yourself, Rias? But you, the two of you alone in the club room, doing," he said in a mischievous way to make Rias blush even more and scream. "Akenuo," the girl screamed as smoke came out of her head and ears, while a small trail of blood came out of her fine and beautiful nose. Chapter 02. Issei watched the scene in front of him with a drop on the back of his neck as Murayama and Kata scolded Mitsuda and Motohama for why their respective girlfriends had them lying on the floor with a lap pillow. He proceeded to greet the pair and sit in his chair as he looked outside to notice a Redeed talking to a black-haired girl with glasses outside the classroom. The Redeed turned to stare at him for a few seconds before they both looked away from each other, each for a different but relatively equal reason. They had caught the other's attention, and for Issei it could mean trouble, but there was another problem, and that was that he began to feel a certain attraction to the Redeed. He wouldn't deny it, but she was beautiful. "Ara Hyoudou-kun, you fell in love with the academy's on-sama," Kiryu said beside him with a mischievous smile. "Don't tell me I said that out loud," he said with a drop of sweat running down his cheek. "And what do you think, champion?" he said mockingly while Murayama and Katis watched this scared. "No, Issei-sama is already smitten by Rias on-sama," said a girl, and Issei did that to her by tilting his head to one side, which made several sigh at how cute it looked to them that he did that. "You aim high, Issei," said Mitsuda, putting his arm around the brown-haired boy's neck. "It will be difficult, but I'm sure you can do it," Issei Motohama said, putting a hand on the brunette's head. "You two don't make things more difficult for us," shouted some girls from the class. "Are you going to deny that Issei wouldn't look good next to Rias-senpai?" Mitsuda said with an arrogant smile. "Or do you want it for yourselves? You're wasting your time. Rias-senpai has already set her sights on Issei. Oi has asked her club mates to investigate Issei, and Mitsuda along with me gave them interesting information." Hahaha, Motohama said maliciously. "What kind of data?" Kiryu said maliciously. "You know, the typical thing." Haha, Motohama laughed evilly while his glasses shined and his smile looked clearly evil. "What the hell did you two do?" Issei said with some fear, although he didn't really have any. "Good things for you, Issei," said Mitsuda as his girlfriend hugged him from behind. "Only good things," he said, while smiling with some mischief. Issei was going to speak when the teacher arrived at the class and it began. The classes were relatively boring for the brown-haired boy, but he couldn't help but think about what the hell Mitsuda and Motohama had told Rias Gremory's servants. It's not that it bothered him what they said, but how they said it and for what purpose. He knew that these two were his friends, but he didn't know entirely what intention they had with this, although a slight idea was given. Since he was the only one in his group of friends without a partner, they had definitely done something to make the Redeed notice the brown-haired boy, but he didn't know if those two's plan had worked. It was time to leave and he decided to go ahead and leave on foot. He felt that he had to clear his mind, although feeling a Nekasu 5 meters away from him made him feel uncomfortable. As he passed by a bridge he noticed a brunette on the shore and she seemed to be waiting for him since her face lit up, he could feel that bad vibe coming from her and he knew immediately that she was not human at all. "Excuse me, are you Hyoudou Issei-kun?" she asked with doubt and a cute look that turned the brown-haired boy's stomach at such a deplorable performance. Mitsuda and Motohama at least pretended their initial intentions better with the woman in front of him. "I'm the same," he said with a kind smile, although inside he wanted to end it and leave, but the Nekomata was a few meters away and was a servant of the Gremory girl, so he couldn't afford to get into trouble with the sister of the Crimson Satan, or at least not yet. "I was wondering if you were free this weekend. I'd actually like to ask you if you'd go out with me," she said with a shy look. "Damn, this is disgusting even for me. You don't even try to hide your bad intentions against me. Hell, even the Nekomata just facepalmed at your stupidity. I'll play along, let's see how bad you do. It would be nice to go out for a walk on Sunday, but I don't even know your name and I'm not really ready to be in a relationship yet, but I have no problem going out on a little date this Sunday," said the brunette smiling. "Ah, how clumsy of me, I asked you out without even introducing myself." She hit her head with her fist and stuck out her tongue before standing firm. "I'm Amano Yuma, it's a pleasure to meet you Hyoudou-kun," she said with a smile. "The pleasure is mine. How about you give me your phone number so we can talk," he said, although he felt annoyed internally, something that even the Nekomata noticed, but the girl in question didn't. "Yuma, he plans to do it at sunset, I must assume," he thought seriously. "Sure, here you go, see you later Hyoudou-kun," she said, sending a kiss with her hand and then running away happily after having given him a note with her phone number with a heart at the end. "Okay, she's gone, let's go home before the Nekomata realizes that I'm aware of her presence," he thought to continue on his way, while saving the number in his cell phone and leaving the place, while Kaneko came out of her hiding place with a lollipop in hand. The following days were boring for Issei, who noticed how Rias looked at him from a distance and then left, although it was funny when Akeno said something in her ear and she blushed. Issei wouldn't say it, but he loved to see her blush and stare at him somewhat shyly. Who knows what the girl would say to make her like that, and she honestly didn't want to know. Finally Sunday arrived and the brown-haired boy took the Yuma to many places, either to eat, buy clothes, play in the arcades or visit the small park that was obviously a trap where she would kill him. The brown-haired boy asked her to wait for her while she went to the bathroom and when she returned, they walked through the park until they reached a fountain. The girl separated from him. "Issei-kun, to commemorate our first date you would do me a big favor," said the girl in question. "If it is within my reach, yes," he said with a smile. "You will die for me," she said with an arrogant smile. "I didn't hear you well, could you repeat it?" said the brown-haired boy, cleaning his ear. She approached him and whispered in his ear, "You will die for me," leaving the brown-haired boy bewildered and then jumped back showing a pair of black wings and wearing a black leather S&M suit that caused Issei to look scared. "Yuma-chan," he said shocked. "Please die," he said, stabbing a spear of light into the chestnut's belly. It quickly collapsed while losing a lot of blood. "If you want to blame someone, blame God who put that sacred gear in you. I will keep this bracelet as a souvenir. Thank you very much for the quote," he said, flying away without noticing how Issei began to disappear into particles of light. "So the fallen are after the sacred gear," he said, the brown-haired boy coming out from behind a tree. "That fallen was so dumb as to not see through a simple illusion, although Dad was the one who taught me, so I don't doubt that it's easy for a low-class fallen to detect it," said the brown-haired boy and then calmly walked home as if nothing had happened. He would finish off that fallen later, but he had to find out first how many of them there were. The next day he went to Kuo Academy where classes continued to be boring, although seeing Mitsuda and Motohama smiling evilly made him think that something would happen, and he was not wrong when at the end of classes, one of the Gremory girl servants came to ask about him. They accompanied him to the club while the girls murmured about the two princes of the academy, although it's not as if he or Kiba Hyoudou really cared about what they said. Upon reaching the entrance of the club they knocked on the door receiving a pass from the other side and were greeted by the red-haired Gremory and the white-haired Nekomata. "It's an honor to have you with us, Hyoudou-kun," Rias said with an enigmatic smile. "The honor is mine, Rias-senpai," said the brown-haired boy with a sincere smile. Then he looked at the white-haired girl. "I'm Hyoudou Issei. It's a pleasure to meet you Taojo-chan," he said with a smile, while giving him a lollipop he had in his pocket and then looking at Kiba. "It's a pleasure to meet you Kiba-san." He gave him a handshake that the blonde gladly accepted and then he saw a certain brunette come in with a teapot and several cups as well as snacks. "Nice to meet you, Imajima-senpai," he said, taking the cup of tea that she served him while taking a seat. "I don't want to be rude, but why did you call me?" he said with a serious face. "I wanted to invite you to join my club. Tell me Issei, do you believe in the supernatural?" Risa asked with an enigmatic smile. "Yes, quite a lot. On the other hand, I don't see anything wrong with joining your club," he said with a smile. "But there's something I want to ask. Do you know who this girl was?" Rias said, dropping a picture of him and Yuma strolling through the mall. "I date on Sunday, a fallen angel who tried to kill me," he said calmly while drinking his tea, "but you already knew that, or it's not like that, Rias Gremory," he said smiling. The Redeed didn't expect that and got nervous, but then she noticed the brown-haired boy's relaxed posture. "Don't be surprised, senpai, I'm never alone," he said, raising his left arm, summoning his boosted gear, causing them to be on alert. "Come on, say hi Drake," he said, leaving everyone stunned. "Nice to meet you young demons, I am Drake the Welsh Dragon," they heard the gauntlet speak as it glowed in a faint emerald. The secretary said in shock as she pointed at the boosted gear. The same answered Drake from the sacred gear in a somewhat mocking tone. "So you are the current secretary, did you know it was us from the beginning?" Rias asked him with some caution. "Well, Drake mentioned that I should be careful not to attract the attention of the demons that were in the place, but in the end, it doesn't matter what I do attract their attention," he said, shrugging his shoulders as he took the cup of tea and took a sip. "I must say, this tea is fantastic and relaxing," said the brunette with a calm expression and then looked at Rias. "Now yes. What can I do for you, Rias senpai?" he said in a playful manner. Rias raised her eyebrow at the playful tone of voice, but let it pass and looked at him directly, looking for bad intentions, but found none of that in him. Rather, she saw a great interest in the brunette and then noticed how he began to blush. "If he sees me with such intensity, I won't be able to help but feel embarrassed, senpai," said the brown-haired boy, somewhat red but with a playful tone. The Redeed blushed furiously and then shook her head from side to side in denial and put on a serious face. "Well, to tell the truth, I would like you to join my entourage. I promise it will be a great experience and there will be great things for the future," he said, smiling self-satisfiedly to notice how the brown-haired boy smiled but then put on a serious face. "It will be impossible, senpai, I already mastered my sacred gear to a high level, so reincarnating is impossible due to my own level," he said and then turned bitter. "Although I do not deny that it would have been good to be part of your team," he said to take another sip of tea while Akeno served him another cup. "The pity," said the Redeed in a discouraged tone and with touches of sadness in her that the brown-haired boy noticed immediately. "Although that doesn't mean that I can't help you in whatever you need, we can very well be allies. An alliance between the current secretary and the Gremory heiress doesn't sound bad at all." "I don't think so, the Red Dragon Emperor and the Princess of the Crimson Ruin Red and Red is a good combination," he said, looking at her face illuminated by that idea. "It's fantastic, I like the idea, an alliance between us would be a good start to strengthen both parties," said the Redeed. "I don't deny it, being the secretary is having many enemies in your sights, and having a powerful ally is good for me, apart from that it benefits you, since it fills the Gremory clan with prestige to have at their service the help of a legendary dragon like the secretary," said the brown-haired man, raising the cup as if it were glass. Rias imitated him and took a sip of her tea to smile genuinely. She may not have gotten a powerful piece, but she got a powerful ally. After finishing, Issei returned to his home quietly while being watched by his mother. "Your grandfather won't take it well that you allied yourself with a demon, much less a Gremory," said the brunette while holding her forehead, but noticed her son's smile. "Not at all, the old man will understand, I'm sure of that, and if not, I still have my winning card," he said with a smile. "Since you were born, my father has changed so much that I don't even recognize him, and it's true he could understand it if it's from you," said the brunette to go to her personal office. "But don't play with fire, son, or you could burn yourself," she said as she is entering her office. "I'm almost a mother dragon, fire is part of me," he said with a sly smile before going to his room. The next day. The brown-haired boy decided to walk to the Kuo Academy when he saw a blonde nun fall in front of him, but he held her in time. "Are you okay, miss?" the brown-haired boy said, looking into her eyes and feeling something he had never experienced before. "Hi, thank you very much," she said with a grateful smile and then looked at him with sadness. "Excuse me, do you know where the local church is?" "I got lost," she said in an innocent tone and sticking her tongue out a little, causing that sensation in the brown-haired boy to only increase. "Yes, let's go this way," said the brown-haired boy to take the suitcase from the blonde, who thanked the gesture. "I'm Hyoudou Issei, nice to meet you," he said, looking at her with a smile. "I am Asia Argento, the pleasure is mine, Issei-san," said Essa with a smile and then heard a cry and saw a small child with a wound on one of his knees. "Wow, you shouldn't cry," said Essa, and suddenly a pair of rings appeared on her hands and a faint green light gave way, closing the wound before the shocked gaze of the child and Issei's analysis. When the child was healed, he looked at his healed knee, and when he was going to thank his mother, she arrived upset and took him by the hand, moving him away from the nun, who sadly lowered her gaze but heard the child say something to her in the distance that she did not understand. "He's thanking you," said the brown-haired boy with a smile. "I must have scared you with my power," she said, a little nervous. "I'm not at all like you, look," he said, summoning the boosted gear, "although mine is more for causing damage than for doing something as beautiful as healing," said the brown-haired boy, looking her in the eyes. "Something so beautiful," she said, a little blushed and shy. Yes, what you have is a beautiful and wonderful power, Asia-chan, said the brown-haired boy with a smile. Anyone can do harm, but not everyone can heal or save lives, he said, looking at her with a smile. After that they resumed their journey until they almost reached the church, where the brown-haired boy separated from the blonde as he told her that he had to go to the academy, and they agreed to see each other in the future. Already at some distance in a remote park, the chestnut tree became serious. Radamanthi, said the brown-haired man as a green-haired man in black armor appeared at his side. Tell me, young man, said the man, bowing to the chestnut tree while kneeling on the ground in a way of veneration. I want her, I want Asia Argento, said the brown-haired boy as his eyes turned black, and his hair too. I want her only for me, he said in a loud and commanding tone. Chapter 03. At this moment Issei was in the occult club looking out the window while remembering the blonde nun. He wanted to possess her like a treasure, to keep her for himself. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he didn't notice how Aridid approached him from behind. Issei, are you okay? You seem melancholy, the Aridid said, looking at him worriedly. It's my father, I haven't seen him in a while and I miss him, she said vaguely. It's not like she was going to say, hey, I miss the nun I saw in the morning or something like that. He noticed outside that Mitsuda and Motohama were with their current girlfriends, who gave him a thumbs up without the brown-haired boy understanding why. Mitsuda threw a small box to Issei, who managed to catch it, while the duo of boys gave him a thumbs up and left. Rias looked at this with interest, waiting to see what had been thrown at her. The brown-haired boy opened his hand, seeing that it was a small box containing certain square packages with drawings of hearts and kisses. Rias turned red when she saw what they were, and just at that moment Akeno entered the club room, observing the scene in front of her, where the brunette with his hand half extended was showing the Aridid a small box of condoms. Ara, excuse the interruption, she said while holding her cheek and turning around and closing the door, while outside she said, Ara Kaneko-chan, Kiba-kun, do not enter the club room, because Issei-kun and Rias Butchu are going to be busy for a while, said the brunette, causing the Aridid to blush a lot while she saw how Issei tilted his head to the side, not understanding. Half a kilometer from the place, Radamanthis patted his face in sadness upon seeing this. Miki-sama, Loki-sama, Hades-sama, why didn't they teach the most important thing to the young master? They should have given him the talk. I guess I'll have to give it to him, he said, shrugging his shoulders to look at the city church. Well, let's continue on the mission, he said, quickly disappearing from the place. Later Mitsuda and Motohama looked at him expectantly until they saw their senpai Rias limping by, although the reason for his strange walk was for something else and not what the duo believed, who by the way bumped fists. I don't understand, why do they celebrate Rias senpai walking weird? He hit his hip on the desk after he took away that weird box that these two gave me, he thought doubtfully. The pair celebrated without knowing that their plan failed due to a simple fact. Issei was totally ignorant of hex or anything related to hexuality. Although he understood that spying on girls was bad, he did not understand anything at all about hex or other things. At the end of classes Issei left, he already wanted to know what information Radamanthis had acquired for him, so upon reaching a remote park he waited just a moment and the aforementioned appeared in casual clothes and approached him. Tonight the young nun will be with a renegade exorcist. They plan to use a Gremory contractor as bait to kill them one by one, or at least reduce their forces. The nun is not aware of this, and the fallen will not be nearby, so we can take advantage and take her and incidentally save the Gremory subordinate, he said calmly, while Issei brought his hand to his chin while analyzing the information. By the way, you and I will have to talk about something tonight, young master. It is of utmost importance to you, he said. Looking away and scratching the back of his neck, it is certain information that neither your grandparents nor parents have shared with you. This caught the brown-haired man's attention powerfully. And you can't tell me here? The brown-haired boy asked, seeing how Radamanthis became serious. I see, it's a delicate and private matter, I understand. We'll talk about it after we get Asia Argento back, the brown-haired boy said seriously. Kidnapping is what you mean, partner. Kidnapping is not recovering, Drake told him mentally. Kidnap, recover, what's the difference? In the end he'll be with me, Drake, the brown-haired boy answered. Whatever you say, Mini Hades, see you later, good luck with your Persephone, said the dragon sarcastically and cut off the communication, leaving the brown-haired boy somewhat upset. I'm not the grandfather, I'm not going to force her either, thought the brown-haired boy, although the dragon obviously wouldn't believe that. 11. Finally night came and the chestnut was ready to go out only to be stopped by his mother. Where are you going at this hour, Ice? I asked in an authoritative tone. Edo to Motohama's house, said this useless mind. Oh, and tell me, where does he live exactly? I asked mockingly, seeing the funny face the brown-haired boy made when he got nervous. Even though Loki taught you about deception, you wouldn't fool me, young man, what are you up to? I asked seriously, and then I saw Radamanthis enter with other specters. Young master, ready for the joke for Sona Citri Miki-sama? This is not what it seems, he said with a pale face and several drops of sweat. A joke against a sister of the Maui, she said. This would be such a bad excuse you came up with, Radamanthys. I expected that at least you would come up with a better excuse to kidnap that little nun, she said in a more relaxed tone, and then turned to look at Issei. I'm not against you taking her away from the fallen who have bad plans for her, but kidnapping her on a whim, Issei. What do you think your grandfather would say about this? Bad example. What do you think your grandmother would say about this? She said, somewhat angry. It's not just a whim, mother, something moved inside me. I don't know how to explain it, but I want to have her by my side, and my heart feels strange, my stomach feels strange too. I don't know how to explain it, said the brunette firmly, but at the same time he looked restless. I don't think I'm going to force her to be with me, but I don't want her to get away from me either, he said with a complicated look. Radamanthys go-getter, that Issei is called love at first sight, remember that wonderful feeling, and don't let it disappear, she said in a motherly tone. The boosted gear made an appearance at that moment, drawing everyone's attention. The same thing happens to you with the sister of the Mao Lucifer, isn't it like that, partner, said Drake loudly, powerfully drawing the attention of Issei's mother. Well, the brown-haired boy blushed and got upset with the dragon. Issei, you come with me to the room, Drake-san explained it to me on the way, said the Hyoudou matriarch with great interest, while Radamanthys and company left on their mission. Somewhere else. Kaneko was in trouble, her defense was high, but she was not immune to the sacred elements, and that bullet left her very wounded. The nun had gotten in the way to protect her, and now the renegade priest had tried to cut the girl's clothes, and it was left in an attempt when he was shot out by a burst of attacks and was knocked unconscious, while the nun was carried by one of them as she was knocked unconscious by the shock. One of those subjects took out a certain vial of red liquid that she recognized and threw it at her. They are phoenix tears, use them, Gremory, said the subject, and then fled the place with the others. Well, they took the unconscious nun. She did not hesitate to take the bottle and apply the phoenix tears and heal herself on the spot. A few seconds later, her mistress arrived with the other members of her entourage and took her away from there to keep her safe, because apparently the fallen angels were approaching the place. But Issei. He was embarrassed because the Drake told in great detail what was happening between the brown-haired boy and the Redeed, since there was a certain chemistry between these two. Suddenly the specters arrived with Radamanthys with the nun still unconscious, and she was taken to a room by the Hyoudou matriarch. Since she was going to have a conversation with the young nun before her son, she wanted to meet the one who could be her future daughter-in-law. Young master, it's time to talk about something important, follow me, said Radamanthys as he took him to the chestnut's mother's office. With Asia. She had just woken up in a strange place next to a brunette woman who really looked young and beautiful. Where am I? The young nun asked with doubt and some fear. You're safe, honey, I'm Miki Hyoudou. I'm sure you met my irresponsible son Issei, she said as the blonde looked at her more relaxed. It's Issei-san's mother, nice to meet you, I'm Asia Argento, she said with a smile. The pleasure is mine, darling. Their conversation was interrupted by a powerful scream from Issei. Dad, Mom, you depraved, was the powerful cry of anguish heard from the younger brown-haired boy. What the hell was that? Miki Hyoudou said with doubt and some annoyance. The maid approached and said to him, Radamanthys is giving the talk to the young master, she said calmly. Isn't it supposed that her father should have given it to her years ago? Miki asked angrily while the maid shook her head. The talk? The blonde asked doubtfully. Oh, you haven't received her well either. The maid approached her, whisper in Asia's face. She turned a light pink and used that whisper. The blonde got a crimson red blush, then do this whisper. Asia already had a scarlet blush, and that whisper. The blonde's face was regularly red like beasts, the maid finished saying, and seconds later a dome of steam exploded in the head of the young blonde who babbled incoherently while her eyes were spiraling, and finally a jet of blood came out of her nose, leaving her unconscious. Ara, said the maid with a smile. The baby with Issei-san, the poor girl said unconsciously, while the Hyoudou matriarch watched everything with a drop of sweat on the back of her neck. I really don't want to imagine what you said to make her look like that, Agatha, she said with a complicated look. Chapter 04. Issei was embarrassed after receiving the talk from Radamanthys, who was very clear about what he meant hexually. After that Issei went to his room where Asia was waiting for him, and she was blushing because after waking up and talking to Issei's mother, his mother said that she had no problem with her staying as long as she really wanted to stay. The blonde approached the brown-haired boy slowly. Issei-san, thank you for helping me, I really didn't know they did that. Issei placed a finger on her lip, silencing her and blushing her on the spot. Don't thank me, Asia-chan, I would do it no matter what. Why? The brown-haired boy blushed slightly, and the blonde blushed a little more. I now. Asia silenced him with a finger on the brown-haired boy's lips and gave him a tender smile. Thank you, Issei-san, he said while the brown-haired boy thought he saw the blonde shine in a beautiful light, who had a very beautiful smile in his opinion. In an impulse that he couldn't control, and it's not like he really wanted to, he kissed the emerald-eyed blonde on the lips, who blushed furiously, but then closed her eyes, enjoying the sensation of the brown-haired boy's lips. The kiss was quite long, but it seemed that neither of them really wanted to separate. A maid was standing outside the door of the room which the brunette left open, watching everything, blushing but with a smile. Her young master had found love. Unfortunately, she began to see how the kiss began to intensify, and her blush increased while another maid arrived and blushed at the same time as Agatha Louvain, accompanied by Amagari Lord and Lily Vonfist, who took out their cell phone and began to record. Lemon skipped. In the hallway, Vincent could be seen carrying two of the maids on his shoulders, while Agatha dragged the other one by one foot while she had a hand on her cheek in the lustful smile. The next day, Issei woke up to look at the beautiful blonde who was resting on his chest, breathing softly, causing him to smile really happily. The blonde woke up slightly as she stretched a little, revealing her breasts. She looked awkwardly at the brown-haired boy as she was still half asleep. "Good morning, Asia-chan," said the brown-haired boy, so that she looked at him in detail before getting lost in those beautiful eyes. Those eyes. Asia was in a trance when she saw them while smiling beautifully. "Good morning, Ice," she said with a shy smile, realizing that she was lost in the brunette's gaze, before noticing that she was not wearing any clothes and remembering what happened, causing a monumental blush to occur and steam to explode in her head, leaving her unconscious with spiral eyes and a silly smile that made the brunette smile. He used a magic circle, dressing himself immediately in the academy uniform and using one on Asia, leaving her in casual civilian clothes and then putting on her contact lenses and going out to the dining room. Once at breakfast, it was a bit awkward to notice the thumbs up that Radamanthys was giving him every now and then from a corner, while the mother was looking at the chestnut tree seriously. "I hope you take responsibility if you make me a grandmother," Miki said, making Issei almost choke on his breakfast. "I," said Issei, somewhat scared by the dark aura that surrounded his mother. She smiled and then said quietly, "I really wish that would come." Miki-sama. Issei-sama is part dragon, by now she should be expecting one," Agatha said, making Miki Hyoudou smile, as she saw her son nervous but smiling, and then noticed a magic communication circle, where the hologram of the father of all riches was looking seriously at Issei. "You make me proud, son," Loki shouted, appearing to the side, smiling only to be taken away by Hypnos. "Issei-sama, congratulations," he said, bowing as he was removed by Hades to look at him with a smile. "I can't wait for you to bring her here. I want to meet her, Issei, to make the wedding official. That reminds me, prepare things for when my grandson comes, understood?" Hypnos. DKD said in a commanding voice, and then Hela was seen arriving, who looked at Issei seriously. "I will judge if she is a worthy sister-in-law," she said, only to be interrupted by Athena and Hera. "We have to make preparations for the wedding. There are the dress and the ceremony. We have to invite the lords of Mictlan and Mitra and Veritragna to the ceremony and party," they said, running from one side to the other, so that Hera could see Issei directly. "Treat her like a queen. Do you hear me, Issei? Promise me," she said seriously, but seeing Issei nod, she calmed down a little. "I'm still surprised that you left Zeus just because you knew about my son's existence. He still doesn't know, right?" Miki Hyoudou said with slight fear. "Let him leave it if Issei first let me die and that idiot notices it," Hera said seriously. "Ah, he's late," shouted the brown-haired boy as he grabbed his briefcase and ran to the exit. Everyone smiled at him. "He's certainly a great son," Loki said with a smile. "Our greatest treasure," said the brunette with a smile and then stared at them. "By the way, how did you find out?" she asked, but seeing the drop of sweat running down Agatha's cheek gave her an idea. "Agatha," they all responded in sync and with a smile. "I just hope Aphrodite never sees that video," Athena said with a resigned sigh. "Which one of the two?" Hera asked with a complicated smile. "Does it really matter? They're both compulsive nymphomaniacs who, if they don't have an orgasm, at least every hour, go crazy," Miki said mockingly, and the others nodded in agreement while a shy Asian girl arrived at the dining room. With Issei. He arrived at his classroom somewhat uncomfortable as Aika Kiryu looked at him with a mocking smile while making comments like, "Isn't that very innocent?" and similar, and then saw Mitsuda and Motohama enter quite pale and almost lifeless, but with a smile, and their respective girlfriends, with a somewhat singular glow. Aika laughed at the expense of the young trio that day. Chapter 05. Issei was in the occult club looking at Rias, who looked upset about what happened to her tower. "Rias, if you like I can take care of those fallen ones, they are a threat, and if they mess with my allies they mess with me," said the brown-haired man seriously, while the Redeed gave him a beautiful smile. "It would help me a lot if you did it. I would do it myself, but that could cause problems with the fallen angels," said the Redeed, a little sad and frustrated. "Don't worry, Rias, tonight there won't be a trace of them. I'll take care of that," said the brown-haired boy, smiling while Rias blushed a little and nodded happily. The brown-haired boy left the club upset to know that little Kaneko could have died if it weren't for his desire to have Asia with him. He felt partly guilty, but at the same time relieved that she was okay. In the distance I see a blue-haired girl with long hair dressed in an office suit, so I smile. The chestnut tree was walking calmly when the sky turned purple. It was on a barrier. I don't know, Raynor was supposed to have killed you, either way, die. He created a spear of light and without further ado stabbed the brown-haired boy who simply collapsed to the ground lifeless. He ended up disintegrating the body and undoing the barrier. She decided to go straight to the city church to report what happened with the chestnut and arrived at the room while Donishik was talking to Raynor along with Middle. Freed is stable and will take a long time to heal. We just need to find that brat and get her sacred gear, said the man coldly. That fool got too confident and was defeated by the demons, and I'm sure they have her. They could have even reincarnated her, said Middle with annoyance. That doesn't matter, even being a demon we can extract the sacred gear, said Raynor without any annoyance. If you're going to extract his sacred gear like you killed that guy you had a date with a week ago, then I'd better do it myself, Kalwarner said angrily. If you were thinking of leaving him alive just because he's a cute guy, you're very wrong, Raynor. Well, I've already taken care of him anyway, she said with disdain, but she noticed Raynor's annoyed face. What the hell are you talking about? I finished him off with one blow and left him in the park, she said, but then she opened her eyes in disbelief. Don't tell me that Gremory, that damn thing, she screamed in anger. He's dead anyway. It was still too easy. I never thought a reincarnated demon could be so weak, he said mockingly. At that moment some wounded exorcists arrived. We are under attack, Raynor-sama, he said, only to collapse lifeless as a wounded Middle arrived alongside an equally wounded Kalwarner and Donishik. Raynor, what the hell, imposter, said Donishik as he created a spear of light alongside Kalwarner and Middle, while the others did the same, and Raynor went on the defensive. Who the hell are you guys? Raynor shouted in anger as she pointed at both groups. A lot of noise began to be heard outside the room until it calmed down when Raynor pierced Middle's chest with a spear of light which she looked at in disbelief before collapsing to the ground lifeless while several exorcists arrived at the place while a pitched battle took place in the place where soon only Raynor remained, which she watched as Middle transformed into Rias with an arrogant smile and she simply stabbed her just for her to digest. Why Raynor? He said breathlessly before collapsing and taking the form of Middle again. What the hell is going on? It was an illusion, she said, annoyed to see how all the dead except for Donishik, Kalwarner and Middle got up again with an evil smile. What's wrong, Yuma-chan? A voice she recognized said behind her, so she looked at the brunette behind her with a wound in his belly. Didn't you like the date? He said in a mocking tone only to see how the dead became the brunette. Look carefully at what you did, Raynor. You murdered your companions in cold blood, he said, taking his cheek, and she stabbed him only to be replaced by Azazel, who looked at him incredulously as he collapsed. Azazel-sama, he screamed in panic only for him to turn to dust. It hurts, doesn't it? How many more did you make suffer like this, fallen angel Raynor? Issei asked at her side with blood on his belly. Weren't you the one who killed me in cold blood? He said calmly. It was my mission, I didn't want to do it, she said in despair as she saw everything go dark, only to see a huge sickle being held by a skeleton on a golden throne, along with several men in black armor and 3 women in black clothing looking at her as if she were trash. You will be condemned to Tartarus, fallen angel, said the skeleton as one of his servants approached him. Hypnos, what's happening? Hades-sama, what if we condemn her to the eternal nightmare? The man in his black armor said. Oh, why don't you just let me torture you forever? Said one of the women. You're so impatient, Nix, said another of the women with an evil smile. It would be better if I took care of it, she said calmly. Oh Pandora, don't take away my fun, said Nix smiling. You two calm down, you are in the presence of Hades-sama, said the last of them. You're boring, Hikari said looking at her with disdain. And if it's better I take care of it myself, she heard behind her the voice that she instantly recognized as the brown-haired boy's, although well, really all this is false, haha, she laughed maliciously, so that everything went back to being the room where everyone who was in the church was dead. Tell me Raynor, how does it feel to be deceived, haha, the brown-haired boy laughed playfully. Who are you? She said crawling away from him. I don't know, maybe he's Hades' beloved grandson, said a voice behind her, only to be grabbed by the hair by Radamanthys, or perhaps also Loki's son. She smiled evilly, but more importantly, what will become of you now that Hades-sama knows about this thing you've planned against his grandson's future wife? Raynor was crying in fear. Oh, you didn't know. Asia-sama is Issei-sama's future wife, she said, seeing the shocked face she had which looked directly at her. Asia-chan is cute and pure, you're just a dirty crow who needs a proper punishment. Well, I'll leave that to my grandfather, he said with a cold look. No, oh please no, the fallen woman screamed in panic and hysteria. How many times did they ask you for mercy and you denied it? Issei said as he grabbed her chin so she would look at him, although you and your little friends could be good specters if they are well trained haha he laughed evilly, the difference is that you have the option to choose subordination or eternal punishment, said the brown-haired boy evilly. Subordination Issei-sama the fallen one quickly shouted. Well you're in luck, I enjoyed our date a little so they won't be so hard on you, Radamanthys take her with you to Hades and tell Thanatos to train her well after that they left in a magic circle, leaving the brown-haired boy in place, and he just raised his hand, and the place flew into pieces while he left the place. Hyoudou mansion. Issei arrived home and it was nighttime, but he noticed Asia's happy smile, while a blonde dressed in a white dress and purple hair showed him several wedding dress designs. Boy, Hera took her role really seriously, and Athena looked really excited, she didn't want to interrupt, so she retired to her room to sleep. It really was a complicated day for him, since he had to deal with the jokes that Ika made on him all the time. Without further ado he fell asleep and an hour later Asia joined him. The next day. Issei asked for the day off to show Asia the city, which was excited, so her mother did not hesitate to accept, since Hera and Athena were excited to organize the wedding they would have. For Asia it was a complete surprise to know that Issei was the grandson of Hades and son of Loki, but it did not bother her at all, and more than anything she talked to them through the magic circle of communication with which they spoke to her. She noticed the happiness that Persephone had when she saw her and she did not fully understand, but feeling the acceptance of everyone and the fact of calling her family made her feel very happy. Suddenly they noticed the absence of people and looked in front of them at a woman who was smiling happily at the emerald-eyed blonde but was looking badly at the brown-haired boy while hugging the blonde who looked confused. What are you doing here, Hades? On the other hand, I'm glad to see you, daughter, she said with much love to the blonde who looked at her strangely while Issei stood on guard. The Greek girl, let go of Asia, said the brunette annoyed while he looked at the blonde. What the hell are you talking about, Hades? She's my daughter Persephone and I have the right to see her, said the woman indignantly. You are the mother of Persephone Oba-san, said the blonde innocently still in the arms of the woman who was confused. Persephone, what did you do to her, Hades? The angry woman threatened. At this point I know you are Demeter, then she felt her mother rush to her position. You, why do I feel the power of Hades in you? Demeter said seriously, just noticing how she became serious. We met in the worst possible situation, Demeter. I am the daughter of Hades, and I ask you to leave my daughter-in-law on the ground, said Miki Hyoudou seriously, only to notice Demeter's look of anger and disappointment. He turned out to be a bastard, Hades, I'll face him. Enough with it. He left in a magic circle with Asia in his arms. Let's go quickly, Issei said using a magic circle on them. Underworld Issei's fields. Demeter arrived with Asia Argento in her arms to begin walking towards Hades's castle when she noticed a beautiful brown-haired woman watering the flowers of the place with Hera, Athena and her daughter Persephone, who tensed up when she saw her but then ran to her very happy. Mother, she said, hugging her and then noticing that Asia looked somewhat scared but at the same time calm when she saw her. What are you doing with Asia-chan? She asked only to see Issei arrive with his Miki, who relaxed when she saw that Demeter looked clearly confused. The chestnut who was watering the flowers calmly approached Issei and took him by the cheeks with love before giving him a kiss on the forehead. How you have grown so beautiful, my little grandson, she said softly and then looked at Demeter. Nice to meet you, my name is Hanabira Hyoudou, she bowed. Persephone, how do you allow this to remain like this? Hades deceived you and had a daughter with a human, this is hubris, said the goddess of agriculture angrily. Persephone looked at the younger brown-haired boy who looked uncomfortable. Eyes, please take off your contact lenses, said the goddess, and the brown-haired boy did so. Demeter stood still as she saw the eyes of the world, she felt warmth in them, although that was interrupted when she saw Fenrir arrive at the place in a hurry. Brother, are you okay? The wolf god said with genuine concern. Oni-sama, the brown-haired boy said in surprise, only to be knocked to the ground by two smaller wolves. Uncle Issei is here, shouted the white wolf. Uncle, I heard that you are going to get married, said the black wolf. Skull, please behave yourself, said Fenrir, but they ignored him. Is he Loki's son? Demeter said incredulously. Mother, there is much you need to know, said Persephone, while Hera and Athena talked animatedly with Asia about the future wedding, something that excited the blonde. Arriving in front of Hades, he was impressed to see his older sister, but instantly worried. Spectres, protect Issei, he shouted only to notice how Demeter was staring at him. What's wrong, sister? It's very strange to see you around here, he said somewhat tensely. Of all the Olympians, I never imagined that you would be worried about your grandson knowing whose son he is, she said incredulously. I don't blame you, I felt the same way when I found out, Hera said, taking her by the shoulder. There is something I want to know before anything else, daughter, said Demeter, looking at Persephone. Yes, mother, she said. This girl Asia Argento, is she your daughter? I asked, causing everyone in the room to remain static. Even Thanatos opened his eyes in disbelief. It is the blessing that I let fall upon the earth in the hope that you will meet ice, she said in a maternal tone, hugging Asia. You are the miracle that I created for the world and the most beautiful thing I have made in my life from my own flesh and blood, said the goddess of spring. So in essence, yes, you are my daughter. Asia stood still as a smile appeared on her face as tears fell down her cheeks, and she hugged the goddess with love. Mother, he said in a low voice. Chapter 06. Everyone watched little Asia hug Persephone with lots of love and tears as she was crying. However, Demeter, who remembered something about the blonde, suddenly frowned. I think I heard that my granddaughter is going to marry yours, she said, annoyed, looking at Hades. I refuse, she said firmly. I'm sorry, mother, but this time you have no voice or vote, said Persephone, as Asia looked at Demeter with fear. She loves him, and he loves her. I will not allow you to separate them, she said, staring at her. Demeter got upset by this and looked at Hades. I also have another problem with you, and it's about this, she said, pointing at Miki. You committed a fault, and you were unfaithful to my dear Persephone. Even worse, you committed hubris, she said, very angry. Hades, for the first time in a long time, really frowned a lot and quite angrily. Demeter, look at my beloved daughter or my dear grandson like that again, and I will show you why even Zeus came to fear me, he said, getting up from his throne seriously. I love Persephone with all my soul, but I also do it with Hanabira. He slowly went down the stairs where his throne was and looked seriously at Demeter until he was in front of her, showing that he was taller than her. You will be the second born of all of us, but not the strongest. Never interfere again in the life of my dear grandson, or you will pay the price, he said, expelling his power. I am a goddess, I am not afraid of you, she said defiantly. It's not me you should fear. Our father was already destroyed without leaving a trace, and it wasn't me or our brothers, he said, and then looked at Issei. He was only 8 years old, and he killed the only titan that not even all of us could kill. We barely defeated him, but he destroyed him with a single attack, he said seriously. Issei stepped forward and expelled his aura, easily leaving his grandfather and great-aunt behind in terms of power. Enough, he said seriously, to look up and turn off his aura. You scare my Asia, he said, looking at the blonde who trembled with fear in the arms of Persephone, who was sweating, having felt the power of the brown-haired boy for a few seconds. Immediately Hades calmed down to Demeter's surprise, and she followed him. Issei looked at her and then remembered something about the story of Demeter, so he looked at Pandora. Go to the Elysian fields and bring me Asian soul. This left Demeter perplexed. The brown-haired man stared at her. You can take him from here under one condition. You will walk in front of him, and at no time will you be able to look back at him until you leave the underworld. Do not worry about his human condition. Unlike you, I will turn him into a demigod. Besides, no one can say anything about hubris if Zeus is the one who has broken that rule the most times, along with Poseidon and the two Aphrodites, he said with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck, remembering those hex maniacs. After a while Pandora arrived with Yasion, who, upon seeing Demeter, hugged her with love. Here it is, now get out of my future kingdom, Demeter said Issei, and he turned around, and immediately Issei used a magic circle of transportation, taking them out of the underworld. Before the incredulous gaze of everyone, especially his grandfather, I said that I couldn't see back until I was out of the underworld, but I didn't specify how I had to get out of it, he said with a sly smile, causing Loki himself to laugh in one of the corners of the place, accompanied by his daughter Hela, who ran to hug the younger brown-haired boy and then run with him in her arms to where Asia was and take her in her arms, too, squeezing the pair while laughing happily. Yes, it had to be my son, Loki said playfully. And my grandson, Hades sighed and then smiled as he saw Issei taking Asia by the hand and fleeing in a magic circle of Hela, Hera, Athena, Persephone and Miki, who wanted to take them to prepare the wedding. That troublesome little boy, he said with a smile, and then returned to his throne and saw how the goddesses went after the couple to sweat a drop down his temple. You're in trouble, boy, said the father of all riches mockingly. Human world, Kuo City Hyoudou mansion. Demeter watched in disbelief as he and her beloved Yasion were in the courtyard of a mansion where several servants took care of the place and did their work with dedication until she saw the brown-haired man who had Asia by the hand and ran out of the place, and then saw how the goddesses along with their daughter arrived at the place screaming. I see, quite annoying, that boy is going to pay for this when he comes, running away from his responsibilities as my Asia-chan's future husband, said Persephone indignantly. Well, technically we had already given him the date to have a date with her, said Athena with a drop of sweat on the back of her neck as she remembered that fact. Miki stared ahead for a few seconds and then burst out laughing at the memory, then the others did too. Demeter looked at Persephone seriously. How much of what Hades said was true, daughter? She asked seriously. Persephone smiled at her and said, everything. He killed Kronos and Uranus, she said calmly. That little one is really powerful since he was born, she said with a touch of tenderness. I guess there's a lot to talk about, but this time without so much hostility, said Miki, inviting the goddess of agriculture to her home, which she hesitantly accepted. By the way, she played a joke on you, said Miki looking at her. I realized that he deceived me with the condition he gave me to get Yasian out of the underworld. How come he has so much authority? She asked doubtfully. Athena looked at her to smile proudly. He is the next king of the underworld, even Mr. Micklin became fond of him, said the purple-haired girl with a smile, leaving the goddess of agriculture stunned. With Issei. After running they arrived at a park, and the pair began to laugh a little, although Asia was short of breath because she did not have much physical endurance. The brown-haired boy decided to take her out to eat since they were hungry, so he went to a small hamburger restaurant and bought two. It wasn't long before his order arrived, and so it was. He noticed that Asia was looking at the hamburger, without knowing what to do, so he decided to interfere. Asia-chan, he said, getting her attention, that's how you eat, little princess. After that, he took a bite of his hamburger, and the blonde was very surprised. I didn't know there was a way to eat like this, she said excitedly, and then proceeded shyly to eat hers, tasting a hamburger for the first time. It's delicious, she exclaimed happily. Issei looked at her smiling sweetly and smiled genuinely at her. Asia-chan, we're going to have a lot of fun today, he said happily as he took another bite of his burger. Said the blonde smiling with great happiness. A while later we see Asia and Issei playing all kinds of arcade games, from racing or shooting, to dancing where the brown-haired boy showed great skill. They continued playing some games until they passed in front of a claw machine where there were many stuffed animals, especially one of a yellow mouse from a certain somewhat old TV series. What's wrong? Issei said with doubt, watching the blonde stare at the machine, rather at the yellow mouse plush. Oh no, it's nothing, Asia said with shame, hiding her face with her hands. Do you like Pikachu? The brown-haired boy asked, looking at her while inside he thought about how cute the blonde looked. No better, said yes, she said somewhat embarrassed, still with her hands on her blushing face. At that moment Issei put a coin and easily took out the plush of said character. It may not seem like it, but when I was a kid I emptied all the claw games at a fair I went to on several occasions, he said as he handed her the stuffed animal. Thank you very much, this Pikachu will forever commemorate my love for you, Asia said very happily while Issei felt very happy inside. It had been a long time since he had had so much fun with someone, since he had a lot of responsibilities as the future heir of Hades. From there they went to a public fountain where Issei bought some canned sodas for both of them. This is the most fun thing I've ever had in my life, said Asia with great happiness and hugging her stuffed animal with much love. And the day is not over yet, Asia-chan, said the brown-haired boy lovingly. Hyoudou Mansion living room. Issei's mother was staring at Persephone intently as there was a doubt that had invaded her since she met Asia Argento. Persephone spoke to her, drawing the attention of everyone present. Asia-chan is your daughter, but I have a huge doubt. Everyone paid close attention to what Miki Hyoudou was going to ask. Why is she human, being the daughter of a goddess? Even her soul is that of a goddess, but her body is that of a mortal. How is that even possible? Remember when I said I made her from my flesh and blood? Well, that's not entirely accurate. You see, just like that imbecile Zeus, I can also use avatars or hosts, whatever you want to call them. Well, I used an avatar to create Asia-chan from her womb, using her flesh and blood. For her soul it wasn't complicated. I'm the queen of the underworld, so I took a pure and innocent soul and modified it. Giving birth to her was the hard part. I never thought mortals had to go through something so painful and magical at the same time, said the goddess with a motherly smile. Yes, well, I'm a demi-goddess, so believe me, I also went through that intense and wonderful pain of having a child, she said, looking out the window. I would give everything to see him happy, she said, smiling. Same with me, said Persephone. You know, it's kind of awkward that you're my stepmother and mother-in-law at the same time, Miki Hyoudou said with a wry smile. Yes, but at least they are not aunt and nephew, said Persephone looking at her mother and Yasian when she turned to look at her with a flat face. You and Hades are literally uncle and niece, he said, and after a few moments everyone started laughing at the irony of it all. Guo City Recreational Park. Being at the fountain, Issei suddenly took her by the hand. I remembered that there is a fair open right now in this place. Let's go, Asia-chan, he said excitedly. After arriving at the place they saw the Ferris wheel and noticed the glow of longing in Asia. Let's leave it for the end, said the brown-haired boy smiling, then looked at the carousel. Let's try that first, said the brown-haired boy taking her by the hand and getting her onto one of the carousel horses and then getting onto one of them himself. The attraction began its march while Asia looked at everything excitedly and Issei could only think of one thing: she is undoubtedly really beautiful. After going down they went to eat some crepes and from there they went to as many attractions as they saw while the blonde smiled with genuine happiness. Finally they got on the Ferris wheel where after getting on it started to move. You know, I want to tell you about my life. It may not be very entertaining and you may get bored, he said with a little sadness. The brown-haired boy looked at her directly. Nothing you tell me will ever get boring, Asia-chan. Tell me what comes from your heart, he said with love, and Asia smiled and then put on a sad face. Shortly after I was born I was abandoned in front of a church in a small village in Europe, someone found me crying, and that's where I was raised. Then when I turned 8 an injured little dog came into the church, I prayed for him with all my might, and then a miracle happened. After that they took me to a large church where the wounded and sick came from all over the world to be healed by my prayers. I was so happy that my powers were helping people, she said in a happy tone, but then she put on a very sad face, Issei-senai, but before she could speak she was interrupted by Issei himself, who kissed her with love. You have me now for today and forever, Asia-chan, said the brown-haired boy with love, and she smiled at him while they both kissed just when the Ferris wheel left them at the highest part and the sunset illuminated them with its soft glow. I love you, the brown-haired boy told her, and the blonde clung to him. I love you, she replied, kissing him again. Chapter 07. It was a beautiful day in the city of Kuo. The birds sang happier than ever, the plants looked much more alive than ever, the students entered the Kuo Academy calmly, but in everything there is an exception. A young man with brown hair arrived upset to the academy, and not only upset but sad. It all comes down to something very simple. His mother and his Asia-chan would spend the week in Hades, but as things were looking it would probably be a couple of months, so he would be completely alone at home, of course, if not how many of the hundreds of servants and specters in the Hyoudou mansion. In fact, Radamanthys was nearby for anything the brunette would need. The young brown-haired boy entered the academy quite discouraged because he would miss his Asia-chan. In the hallways he saw Mitsuda and Motohama accompanied by their girlfriends, and for the first time he regretted having helped them because they were very affectionate with their girlfriends and vice versa, causing discomfort in the brown-haired boy. He was undoubtedly a very selfish guy, although really who wouldn't feel uncomfortable? Everyone has ever been uncomfortable seeing a happy couple being alone. Without further ado, Issei entered his classroom and looked out the window only to feel a lump in his throat when he saw Rias Gremory so sad accompanied by her queen, who apparently did not notice the Retide's mood. That worried him a little. After some boring classes it was time for lunch, and Issei, without waiting for anything, went straight to the occult club room where Rias was having lunch with her entourage. The brown-haired boy entered without warning, scaring those present, but just seeing that it was the brown-haired boy made them relax a little. Rias, he called her, making her look at him. You have a minute, he said, pointing outside. The Retide nodded and left her almost finished lunch aside and followed the brown-haired boy under the watchful eyes of the members of the occult club. After leaving the room, Issei took her to where he knew was the limit so that the others would not hear their conversation. Well, Issei, how can I help you? Said the Retide cheerfully, although the brown-haired boy could see some sadness in her. Why are you so sad? The brown-haired boy said, taking her by the shoulders with concern. The Retide looked at him directly, surprised and a little blushed at being discovered quickly, although it was also because the boy she liked would notice her enough to know that something was wrong. It's nothing, Issei-kun, she said, a little nervous. You can't lie to me, you Rias, and you're bad at that, thought the brown-haired boy with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. Clearly there is something that worries you a lot. I'm very worried about you, he said, staring at her, which made the Retide blush even more so that her face and hair almost melted because of the very similar color. Rias thought about it for a moment. Something very bad was certainly going on in her life, but she didn't know what the brown-haired boy would think about that, and she was afraid that he would be upset with her. The poor Retide wanted to cry because her life and her dreams were turning to ashes in front of her, and she didn't know what to do. Then she felt a strong hug that comforted her and made her feel safe, but the fear was still there. Issei noticed that Rias was shaking a little, so he whispered some words of comfort to her, while she began to cry silently, resting her face on the boy's chest, who gave her some caresses on the back and head to calm her down a little. Rias finally let it all out on him, and finally cried her eyes out. She felt so bad being forced into her arranged marriage with a guy who only wanted her body and the fame of her house, having her as a trophy. The worst thing was that she knew he wouldn't be satisfied with just her and would touch her best friend Akeno, not to mention that Razor Phoenix was a lolican, so poor Kaneko would also suffer a cruel fate. Then there was Kiba Hyoudou, who although he wouldn't be touched, he would be forced to fight for the Phoenix, and finally she knew well that Gasper would also have a very bad time because the Phoenix was capable of many things for fame and power. All of that was exploding inside her right now, the uncertainty and the fear, not the dread that the Phoenix would do something to her and her entourage. For his part, Issei felt a lot of anger. What was it that had Rias so upset? Who had done that to the poor girl? He simply couldn't help but feel that. He was so angry that someone had hurt Rias, but one thing was certain, that person would pay dearly for it. Rias was already beginning to calm down, and she honestly didn't want to let go of the brown-haired boy, since for her at this moment, he was like a life preserver that kept her from sinking into the deep. Who was it? Issei asked seriously, and it was no joke, he was really furious. Everyone, Rias said weakly, but enough for Issei to hear her. My parents engaged me to a high-class devil Razor Phoenix, she said fragilely as she clung to him. Did they force you? I asked, knowing full well the answer, and that only fueled his anger further. Rias just nodded sadly while sobbing. "I'll take care of it," said the brown-haired boy, making Rias look at him quickly in surprise. "I know what to do, Rias, leave everything in my hands. I won't let you be used as a bargaining chip or much less an object. You are Rias, the girl who studies at Kuo Academy, not a bargaining chip or anything like that," said Issei, while Rias began to cry again with tears and force. Unbeknownst to Issei and Rias Akeno, she saw all this, and tears were shed. Rias is her best friend and she hadn't even noticed this. She felt so guilty for not being able to do anything and wished that Issei could really do something to help her best friend. 11. Hineko and Kiba also saw this with a lump in their throats and swore to help Issei in his mission to help his mistress. After a while, Rias calmed down but decided to skip the rest of the classes since she didn't feel like it, and Issei went home without caring about anything. Already on the way, Issei looked around, observing that there was no one around. "Radamanthys," he said out loud, and he himself appeared kneeling in front of his young master. "At your service, Issei-sama," he said seriously. "Investigate everything about Razor Phoenix and his demon clan," said the serious brown-haired boy. "Yes, master." He quickly vanished with speed to investigate everything about the Phoenix. Without further ado, the chestnut continued walking until he reached home. "Welcome, Issei-sama, you're still very early for class." Vincent was interrupted when Issei stared at him. "We are on alert," he said, and all the guards lined up in front of him. Razor Phoenix was engaged to Rias Gremory without her consent. She was forced to be, and she truly fears for her safety, so I want you to watch and protect the Gremory heiress from anything from the shadows. Deploy the specters and eliminate every last renegade demon in the area. I will personally take care of solving the matter of the Gremory heiress's engagement to the high-class devil Razor Phoenix. That's all. Disperse." Having said that, everyone went to take their activities while the brown-haired boy entered the office of the house and the one who is supposed to be his. After that, Agatha Louvain came in with a cup of tea and a teapot while she was serving him. "Tell Amagari and Lily to bring my homework from the academy. I am not available to anyone except if it is to inform me about something of vital importance," he said, and she nodded. Meanwhile, Issei used a communication magic circle. It was time to talk to the person he trusts the most, Hades. 20. Without further ado, a hologram appeared in front of him, being his beloved grandfather who, seeing the seriousness in his gaze, also became serious. "Are you alone?" asked the brown-haired boy. "Give me a few seconds," said the father of all riches. It was seen how he gave the order to leave to everyone. He knew that this was something serious if his grandson asked to speak to him alone. "Okay, tell me what the situation is," said the black-haired man seriously. "I will reveal myself to the world as the Sekiryuite and break the engagement with the Gremory heiress," he said simply while the black-haired man looked at him seriously, waiting for an explanation. "By now my mother will have told you what I feel for the Gremory heiress, am I wrong?" said the brown-haired man, receiving a refusal from his grandfather. "She was forced into an arranged marriage with the high-class devil Razor of the Phoenix clan, and from what I know she doesn't want that for anything in the world, I least of all," said the brown-haired man seriously. "I hate demons, Issei. Kick that Phoenix's base. I'll send you everything we know about the Phoenix, strengths and weaknesses as well as their business and political ties," Hades said seriously. "I don't like at all the idea of you choosing the sister of that imbecile Surziches as your partner, but if that's your decision, I can only support you as your grandfather. Give it your all, Ice." "I'm very proud of you, grandson," said seriously, but with a smile, the father of all riches. "I deeply appreciate it, Grandpa. Keep this conversation a secret," said the brown-haired boy seriously. "Take it for granted, Ice. Take good care of yourself and don't skip classes like that again," the raven-haired man finally scolded to end the transmission, and the magic circle vanished. Issei slumped into his chair heavily as he knew that this, while not going to be easy, would take time. The magic circle shone in the room, and from it came Thanatos. "It's done, Issei-sama, your new specters are ready," said the god of death, snapping his fingers, causing another magic circle to appear where a brunette with cold violet eyes and wearing specter armor along with a blue-haired girl, a blonde with pigtails wearing her armor, and a black-haired man also serious arrived and knelt in front of the brown-haired man. "Rainer Kalwerner. Middle and Donishik have been trained by myself for your service, young master." "Who do you work for?" the brown-haired man asked. 11. "For you, Issei-sama," the four answered in unison. "Who is your loyalty to?" the brown-haired boy questioned again. "For you, Issei-sama," they said again. "For whom or why do they live?" the brown-haired boy said at last. "For and by you, Issei-sama, our lives are yours as well as our bodies and souls for all eternity, if that is how you wish it," they said as an oath. "Well, excellent work, Thanatos. I see that those dirty crows are now my loyal servants," said the brown-haired boy, while the god of death nodded. "Your words flatter me, young man," said the god with a smile, then became serious. "They were reincarnated as ghosts, but they still retain their original abilities, so they will be useful to you," he said with a smile. Okay, deploy with a rest on your mission, said the brown-haired boy, and the four of them quickly left the place. You can leave Thanatos. Good job, said the brown-haired boy with a satisfied smile. Thank you very much Issei-sama, I'm leaving, said the god, and without further ado he left the place. After a while Radamanthys arrived with several folders full of information about the Phoenix house, so the brown-haired boy began to read them until the door of his study was knocked on. Go ahead, said the brown-haired boy. Rias-sama is looking for you, young Master Vincent said to the brown-haired boy who nodded. Bring it, he said, and without further ado the butler left, returning a few moments later with a redeed and leaving to give them privacy. How do you feel, Rias? The brown-haired man asked. I feel better Ice thanks she said, and then became a little shy. Can I stay here to sleep tonight? I don't want to be at home she said. No problem for me Rias he said, but then a silver magic circle appeared and a silver-haired girl came out of it. The brown-haired man did not hesitate to take out his sacred gear and pointed at the woman with a charged dragon shoot. The woman, unfazed, looked at Rias. So, Rias-sama was here. I'm sorry, but we have to go, she said, only for Issei to put Rias behind him. What does this mean, young man? She said seriously. Tell your master that from now on, Rias Gremory is under the custody and care of the Red Dragon Emperor. They are not allowed to see her, he said seriously, and the silver-haired girl looked at him, closing her eyes and frowning. I refuse, Rias-sama, let's go he said firmly. I don't care that you are the queen of the Mau Lucifer, Rias will not go with you, said the brown-haired boy expelling a bit of his dragonic aura. If he knows who I am, he knows he has no chance. She opened her eyes in disbelief when the brunette's hand was an inch from her face, which was incredulous at the young man's speed. To me you are weak just like your master. Get out of here queen of the Mau Lucifer Graphia Lucifuge, said the brunette seriously and his eyes already shone emerald, and tell the coward Razor Phoenix that I'll wait to humiliate him whenever he wants. He will never have to fight and tell your father-in-law that he lost all rights over his daughter when he decided to use her as a bargaining chip. Now get out. Without waiting for an answer he used a magic circle on her expelling her from his mansion. Rias looked at everything and was shocked by all of that. Issei looked at her and gave her a bright smile and happily said. You will never be alone again, I will protect you, he said smiling. Rias nodded happily. Chapter 08. Rias looked on in disbelief as the brunette had thrown Graphia out of her home with tremendous ease. It was well known that only someone who was superior in power to one could send one with a magic circle to another place, unless they did it with their guard down case of Demeter and Yasion, and even then it was possible to avoid it. So seeing Graphia being fully alert being expelled with brutal ease left her dismayed. How powerful was the current Secretary really? For such a feat he must be at least at the level of a Mau, a Seraph or a Cadre, she simply couldn't help but wonder. Ice, how powerful are you really? The redeed said unconsciously. Much more than you imagine, Rias-senpai, he said seriously and then looked at her directly. I know you have doubts I will answer them, he said, firm in his word. Who are you really? He said seriously but confidently. She knew he just wanted to protect her. She blushed slightly thinking that. The brown-haired boy smiled and made a bow elegantly. The current Secretary Hyoudou Issei, I am. The next day Kuo Academy. The limousine arrived at the Kuo Academy. The students were not so used to seeing that limousine arrive knowing well who was coming in it. They were used to seeing him arrive on foot. Many rumored that he was simply a very simple boy, so most of them thought that he had gotten up late and they had to bring him. Their thoughts died when they saw him get off. He was dressed in his uniform correctly as usual, and his elegant bearing was still there, but seeing him open the door on the other side left them baffled. Why would he get off on the street side and not the sidewalk? Well, as soon as he walked to the other side of the limo he opened it and then they saw her, that beautiful crimson hair. Rias-sama several girls shouted while some boys watched the scene with some jealousy, but also thought it was natural. Rich and powerful people always go together was the general thought, although they had to admit that both together they looked good. Apart from seeing the cute smile of their beloved Sama made them happy. Without further ado, the pair entered the academy while the others watched. Issei walked her to her classroom and said goodbye to go to his own when Sona approached him with Akeno and Tsubaki. They took her out of the classroom to talk in private. Rias, are you okay? We heard from Graphia that the current Secretary kidnapped you, Sona said with genuine concern. I'm fine she said with a smile. I asked Ice to let me stay at his house and Graphia broke into his house. He expelled her in a magic circle for that, the redeed said smiling, while Akeno hugged her with relief. Hyoudou Issei is the current Secretary. Sona said in disbelief. Wait, he expelled Graphia from his house with a magic circle she said stunned. It was no wonder even Akeno was extremely surprised, but then Akeno realized a detail. Wait Ice, but you spent the night with her cute cowhide said Akeno mischievously, while Rias blushed completely and Sona and Tsubaki's glasses fogged up. Wait, what you think is not happening, Akeno, the redeed said quickly. I didn't say anything about something happening, Rias said playfully, and with an amused look, Sona and Tsubaki had a slight blush. Well, it seems you're okay, she said, sounding calmer, and without further ado, they all entered the classroom, only to notice the scandal that was in said classroom, since a girl heard that Rias had spent the night with the second-grade boy Hyoudou Issei. Meanwhile Issei entered the classroom while completely ignoring the murmurs until he saw the drawing of an umbrella and his name written next to Rias under the umbrella. Issei shook his head to the side, not understanding what that meant. Then Mitsuda and Motohama entered, who became angry when they saw the drawing. "Hey, what the hell is wrong with you all?" Mitsuda shouted, taking a red marker. "This is clearly an insult," Motohama shouted, taking another red marker. "It's missing a heart," the pair shouted as they drew several hearts around the umbrella and a huge one on top. 20. "We're sorry," the men in the classroom shouted. "The heart is the most important part of the shared umbrella," Mitsuda said as he drew even more hearts, and his girlfriend nodded. "How could they forget such an important detail?" Motohama said, also drawing more hearts, while his girlfriend nodded in agreement with Mitsuda's girlfriend. Issei just watched until he blushed quite a bit when he understood what that meant. Hyoudou Issei could possibly be one of the most powerful demigods on the planet and have ridiculously great power, but he was really a really innocent guy. When it came to love relationships in modern Japanese culture, he began to babble several incoherencies without avoiding blushing, more to the point that he fell unconscious with steam coming out of his head. Mitsuda just picked him up like a sack of potatoes and took him to the infirmary. The brown-haired boy woke up a couple of hours later. It was time for recess, so without further ado, he went to his classroom, being greeted by his two best friends. Yes, indeed, that pair were his best friends. After that, the classes continued normally, although for some reason no teacher or master had erased the drawing from the blackboard, leaving Issei blushing for the rest of the class. After finishing classes, he went directly to the occult club room where Rias happily welcomed him, and she went to look seriously at his entourage and that of her friend Sona, who was in the place seriously looking at everything. "There is something I need to talk to you about," she said, but Akeno interrupted her. "We know, Rias, and we all want to say that we support you unconditionally," said Akeno, and Kiba, along with Kaneko, nodded. Rias was about to thank him when a magic circle appeared where a certain maid came out with a frown upon seeing the current Sekiryu in the place. "Rias-sama, I'm glad to see you well," he said seriously. Rias hardened her gaze, as did the rest, when she saw a magic circle of the Phoenix clan, where the person she least wanted to see came out. The blonde man came out, dressed in a somewhat disheveled manner. "I came to see you as soon as I found out you were kidnapped by the Sekiryu," he said, before turning to look at the brown-haired boy. "I guess it's this human," he said, turning on his aura, annoyed but arrogant. Issei looked at him as if he was nothing and moved to put his arm around Ria's neck, hugging her possessively to the blonde's disgust. "Any problem?" "Demon," said Issei, seeing him bored. "Leave my fiancée alone, she's mine," the furious blonde shouted. The brown-haired boy went on to put his hand on Ria's chin, who looked at him directly, somewhat blushed, and then looked at the blonde. "You're Rias. What a great joke you've told, you little insignificant demon. She deserves better than a roasted chicken with a stick up her base," the brown-haired boy said mockingly, looking the Retid in the eyes. "Isn't that right, my Rias?" he said as the Retid blushed and nodded. 11. The blonde was furious, and Grayfia looked at Rias in disbelief. She was always capricious, but seeing her so attached and in love with the brown-haired boy made her slightly surprised. Unfortunately, she had to stop this. She had orders to take, but she couldn't do anything when the brown-haired boy spoke. "You are not worthy of her, the Red Dragon Emperor and the Crimson Ruin Princess." Red and red, it sounds romantic, don't you think? "A woman as beautiful as her doesn't deserve you, cheap demon," said the brown-haired boy as he brought his face closer to the Retids before the incredulous gaze of the rest. "Don't you dare lay a finger on my fiancé, you damn human. You may be the Sekiryu, but I am a phoenix, I am the immortal bird," the blonde shouted angrily as his aura ignited into flames which increased the temperature in the room. Issei looked at him directly with disdain. "Do you want to fight his hand, you cheap demonic bird?" the brunette said, bored. "I will not let you take my wife, she is mine, you damn human. You will be burned to ashes by my flames, the flames of a demon of the Phoenix clan, the flames of the immortal bird, the flames of the Phoenix bird," the blonde shouted in anger. Suddenly the boosted gear appeared on Issei's arm, and for the first time Drake spoke. "For us dragons, phoenixes are nothing more than a small appetizer," said the dragon boredly. Issei looked at the silver-haired girl calmly. "Tell your master that they have until nightfall to prepare." "I already have the battle scene and it will be tonight," said the brown-haired man. "You don't send me Sekiryu, don't forget who I am," said the silver-haired girl seriously. "Grayfia, that was an order," Rias said seriously, leaving the silver-haired girl shocked, not by the order, but by the level of annoyance with which he spoke to her. Rias-sama must understand that he didn't finish saying when the same Retid hardened her gaze and told him. You serve the Gremory clan, there is no room for objections, you are a servant, not an advisor, Rias said harshly, and although Grafia did not show it, those words really hurt her, but she acted professionally and retreated into a magic circle. I hope you prepare yourself, you damn human, you will be my last flame before I am a married man, said the blonde arrogantly. We'll see, right my Rias, he said to finally cut all distance with the redeed by kissing her on the lips while she put her arms around his neck, increasing even more the closeness only to separate and look Razor Phoenix directly in the eyes. That's my ice, she said in a very tender tone. The blonde held back with all his strength from launching himself against a brown-haired boy right there, so he only limited himself to saying, "You will pay for this offense, human," and with that he left, leaving everyone in the room stunned. "Stupid demon, if he continues with that attitude he will die young," said the dragon to the dismay of everyone else. "What a mess that just happened," said the boy from the Citri entourage unconsciously. "Saji, that mouth," Sona reprimanded firmly but then softened her gaze a little, "but you're right, this is a huge problem," the brunette said in a sigh. Meanwhile in the underworld. Hades was sitting on his throne when out of nowhere a woman fell in front of him alarmed. "Hades, Issei-chan is going to face a phoenix demon," shouted a redeed, and Hades just looked at her surprised and could only say one word. Hestia. Chapter 09. Hades looked incredulously at Hestia right in front of him, moving her hands to the sides talking about something that he wasn't even paying attention to, for the simple fact that she knew of Issei's existence. "Since when do you know about Issei's existence?" "Who else knows?" The father of all riches asked seriously. "Of course, since he was born I was there, you know." On the other hand, she put her hand as if she was going to count, not counting those of us who are currently in the underworld and your servants and Athena's Hermes, Artemis, Hephaestus, his new girlfriend Rias Gremory. Iris knows it too, and I think I heard that Helios knows it too. Haha, Hestia laughed. "Everyone has hidden it from Zeus, no one wants to risk Issei-chan, he's a good boy haha." 20. Hades sighed quietly before looking at Hestia. "Honestly, I still don't want anyone to know that Issei is my grandson because Poseidon, Apollo and Zeus will most likely try something against him," Hades said seriously. Especially after Miki-chan threatened to castrate those three if they courted her. I thought she would remain chaste for all eternity like me, Athena and Artemis haha. I even thought of inviting her to our gang," Hestia said somewhat disappointed, but then smiled with great happiness, "but she gave us Issei-chan, so I'm happy haha." Hades couldn't help but smile at this. "By the way, did you know that a demon was after Asia-chan? I think his name was Diodora Astereth haha. The thing is that many times with the help of Hermes, we kept him away from Asia-chan because he wasn't planning anything good. Never tell this to Issei-chan because he would surely kill him," said Hestia as the Nados approached. "Most likely he will send him to me to educate him if you know what I mean," Hestia-sama said the god of death with a somewhat terrifying smile, but the goddess of the bonfire was not even bothered. "Ah, that's right, I stole the broadcast that they will use in the underworld to broadcast Issei-chan's fight against the roasted chicken, let's go watch it," and as best he could, he dragged the pair of gods to who knows where. 11. Human World Kuo Academy. Issei was quietly drinking tea while waiting for the Mau Queen Lucifer to return from her errand and for the Akatori to be ready to literally be beaten. Honestly, Issei didn't care about getting into trouble with the Phoenix clan because he was powerful enough to fight all of them without breaking a sweat, not that he was that arrogant, but that was an irrefutable truth, he was a god. Soon in the room a magic circle appeared where the maid was who looked at Rias with a serious face. "Rias-sama, I have already notified your parents and they do not agree with this at all," said the maid, but Rias just looked at her seriously. "Tell them that just as they don't care about giving me as a bargaining chip or object to the Phoenix clan, I care much less about their opinions on this," she said in a harsh tone, and it really bothered her. Grafia's heart sank when she heard Rias say that, and well they are going to see it, or they just sent to say stupid things, she said, upset. "You'll see," Grafia said while feeling sad inside. "You better be or I'll just leave the clan," she said, and that alarmed Grafia greatly. "From leave the clan," he said with alarm and losing all composure. "That's right, Grafia, and before you say that they hunted me down like a renegade, I doubt that after what happened tonight they'll try anything," he said, leaving the maid stunned. "But why? Why would you do something like that?" Grafia said as she tried to calm down, but it was simply impossible for her. "For my freedom, for myself," she said with her eyes closed and then opened them to show great anger. "I am sick of being seen as the damn heir of the Gremory clan, of being treated like an object which only matters because of her name, but above all because I hate my parents for doing this to me," she screamed, venting everything she had kept in for a long time. Grafia was stunned by this, she never expected Rias to feel this bad. I didn't know that," she was interrupted by the brown-haired boy. "Of course not, you demons only look at what interests you and gives you the best profit, you don't give a damn about the feelings of the younger ones, or am I wrong Sona Citri, didn't you have to make a bet where the objective was that whoever beat you in chess would marry you? Do young demons have to go that far to be happy?" to have even a little freedom. Old demons are just a bunch of shit, and you know it, Graphia Lucifuge, the brown-haired boy finished saying. Well, Graphia kept her head down and without any argument, and Sona nodded her head, annoyed at having to resort to that to be free. Is it so bad to get married? Is that the problem? A new voice said. Rias Gremory's father had arrived through a magic circle with clear annoyance. It's not about getting married, but about who and how, you stupid old man, Issei said with annoyance. I wait and see how the imbecile of a subject to whom you gave your daughter as an object is destroyed like the demonic shit that he is, the brown-haired man said seriously. Well, the Redeed got really upset, although admitted. The only reason you compromised your daughter was because you don't think she is worthy of being the heir of the Gremory, am I wrong? 11. The Redeed was speechless and was about to refute when his own daughter answered. Well, really at this point I wouldn't be surprised. I just want you to know that starting tonight I will no longer be Rias Gremory, I will be Hyoudou Rias, future wife of the current Secretary Hyoudou Issei, she said, showing a ring on her finger. They still have Milikas. I hope they already have at least a slight consideration for him, she said, with discord. Enough of this laughter if you dare. His words died when the boosted gear was centimeters from his eyes. Me what? Finish that sentence and I'll kill you, said the brown-haired boy seriously, while his eyes shone emerald and were slanted. Go get married, demon, no matter how old you are no challenge for us, said Drake, managing to really scare the Redeed. You lost your right to be a father when you treated your daughter as a bargaining chip. If there is something that dragons detest, it is precisely that, betraying your family. Zeodicus was stunned and really scared, but most of all he felt like shit. Being told that by the celestial dragon himself was a hard blow. You know what's funny about the Gremory thing? Issei said, getting his attention. The Gremory boast about treating their servants like family, and at the same time they are nothing but shit to their own family. Tell me, are family objects that you can give away left and right? That leaves a lot to be said about the Gremory. Zeodicus, you are worse than scum. The brown-haired boy stood up and looked ahead, observing the magic circle where Razor Phoenix arrived accompanied by his parents, his sister and his entourage. Well, the time has come, said the brown-haired boy, making a large magic circle where he stood and waited for Razor Phoenix, who was quick to enter it. After that he left and the Redeed just watched as Rias prepared a magic circle to see what would leave a permanent mark on the supernatural world. Battlefield Pocket Dimension. Issei looked seriously at Razor Phoenix, who seemed eager to fight him. A few last words, human Razor said arrogantly. Yes, a few, said the brown-haired boy smiling. Which flowers do you want for your funeral? Said the brown-haired boy smiling and then took a coin out of his pocket. When it hits the ground, we start. With that he tossed the coin. Razor simply jumped towards him with a kick to the brown-haired man's face, who covered it with his forearm as if it were nothing, and then he saw the coin fall. It only took a simple blow to Razor's stomach to literally make him vomit blood. He was thrown backwards, falling to the ground and rolling, only to be grabbed by the head and slammed to the ground. Razor stood up in anger and turned on his aura to the maximum, launching an indiscriminate attack of multiple fireballs. The brown-haired boy simply looked at them and raised his hand. Dragon shoot, said the brown-haired boy, and suddenly a huge sphere was thrown from his hand, destroying all the fireballs and almost hitting Razor, who was barely able to dodge it, but not the powerful kick he received in the back from the brown-haired boy, who hit him in the back with his fist, causing him immense pain. Razor stood up and attacked again with anger, this time launching a gigantic ball of fire which Issei looked at and simply shrugged his shoulders. Human World Occult Club Room. Everyone watched in amazement as the current Secretary was fighting with Razor Phoenix, who until now was losing the battle. This is impossible, he's not even using his sacred gear to fight, and my son the Phoenix Matriarch was interrupted by Rias. He doesn't really need it, Razor simply has no way of beating my ice, said the Redeed, earning an annoyed look from the Phoenix. I may be the Secretary, but my brother is a Phoenix, he is immortal, said the blonde Phoenix. Phoenixes are very powerful birds, that's true, Rias said, but then she smiled, but no phoenix in history has ever defeated a dragon, the Redeed finished, smiling arrogantly. But that boy is a human, said the girl with self-sufficiency. You're wrong, Ravel, the curse of a dragon-type sacred gear is that it dragonizes its wearer to a certain extent. Issei's case is even worse, since he carries one of the two most powerful dragonic sacred gears. Draw your own conclusions, Ravel. Razor has already lost before even starting this fight, said Rias, causing fear in the demons of the Phoenix clan and impressing those of the Gremory clan. 15. Battlefield Pocket Dimension. Issei watched a fireball approach him, so he just puffed out his chest and released a titanic flame that consumed the fireball that no longer looked so big. 11. The torrent of fire ended up hitting Razor Phoenix, who only managed to cover himself. After a few moments he fell to the ground with burns all over his body. This is impossible. I am a phoenix, a bird of fire, how is it possible to burn fire itself, said the blonde on the ground with difficulty. It is a miracle in itself that you are still alive after that razor. As for what you said about phoenixes, dragons are beings that are simply in another league. They are beings basically made of pure energy. The phoenix may be immortal, but the dragon is a being that is simply above even gods, said the brown-haired man looking at him. Well, suddenly everything turns dark for the blonde. Suddenly everything was filled with flames and in front of him. What's wrong, little demon? I scare you, answered none other than Drake himself, who was in front of him. The celestial dragon Razor Phoenix shouted in panic. How is that possible if you are dead and sealed? If you can't figure that out, then you're even dumber than I thought, the dragon said with disappointment, and then began to walk towards the blonde, who was terrified to see him approaching him. No, the blonde screamed as he literally headed in front of him. Drake snorted from his nose, moving his hair while the blonde was about to faint from fear. Then Drake opened his jaws and… The cult club room. Everyone watched as Razor Phoenix screamed in horror and then fainted. Even if his wounds heal on their own, this will leave a psychological scar on him, Sona said. Everyone knew it was true, although it was not that they knew that he had really screamed like that because of an illusion that the brown-haired boy had made him see, which appeared in the place in a magic circle next to Razor Phoenix, who was unconscious and urinating. The brown-haired boy was greeted with a hug from the Redeed, who did not hesitate to kiss him in front of her father and Razor's father, leaving them stunned. Take him out of here, he stinks, Issei said as the blonde's parents approached him. We are sorry to bother you, Sekiryute-sama. I will make sure that my son learns not to bother you again, said the Phoenix Patriarch with a hint of fear. Well, the Phoenix Matriarch nodded, and they both retreated into a magic circle. As for you, Issei said, and Zeodicus looked at him. You are a disgrace as a father. I hope you learn something from this Rias Gremory, said the brown-haired man, so that the Redeed only nodded with his head down and left. Maybe Razor lost a battle, but Zeodicus lost his daughter that night. Later, Issei was in his private office while Rias moved to one of the rooms when Radamanthys arrived. I see that everything went as you planned, young master, said the man calmly. Not everything, this day was crazy. Why didn't the teachers take down that drawing? It was very embarrassing, said the somewhat red-haired boy. Why did I pay them, the man said mockingly while Issei looked at him in disbelief. Issei stood up and was going to protest when he was tackled to the ground by a Redeed who hugged him excitedly. Ice-chan, you were amazing, said the woman. Who the hell are you? Said the brown-haired boy, dismayed. Chapter 10. It was daytime, and the brown-haired boy saw a couple of Redeeds having breakfast at the table. One was his beloved Rias, and the one in his house was none other than his great-aunt Hestia, who looked happy. He looked at her once more, somewhat uncomfortable. So you say that you were literally there when my mother met my father, then you took care of my mother during her pregnancy without anyone noticing. You were at my birth, and together with Hermes and Artemis, you have been taking care of me from the shadows, not only me, but also Asia-chan, said the brown-haired boy incredulously. He said with his mouth full and then swallowed his food and looked at the brown-haired boy. Yes, Issei-chan, he said, smiling at the brown-haired boy. Not only that, but Helios himself knows about my existence. Rias, you hit me in the head with a bat, he said, resting his head on the table, while the girl looked at him with a drop of sweat on the back of her neck. The girl stood up and walked over and gave him a kiss on the forehead. We're late to go to the academy, Rias told him. You're right, see you later, Hestia. Don't finish my puddings from the fridge, said the brown-haired boy when he saw her eating one of them, and without further ado they left. Am I going to have to go buy more, right? A ghost asked Agatha. What do you think? He said, watching as Hestia went for another pudding. Anything for the young master to be happy, she said with tears in her eyes as she left the mansion, and Radamanthys arrived where Hestia was. Hestia-sama, forgive my insolence in asking, but what are you doing here? The specter said. I came to see Issei-chan, but he's going to be busy with class, she said pouting, but then she saw a brown-haired boy in the courtyard waving at her. Oh, Hermes came for me, hehe. Bye, Radamanthys, say goodbye to Issei-chan. Bye, she said happily and almost singing that. Radamanthys just nodded before jumping onto the roof and disappearing from sight. Guo Academy. Sona saw all the students arriving when she noticed a couple of hooded women, and they stared at her, so the demon knew they wanted to talk in private, but above all they knew they were exorcists from the church. After approaching, she spoke. What do you offer to members of the church? I asked in a serious tone. Talk to Rias Gremory, said one of them. Sona was about to speak when she noticed Rias running and taking the brown-haired boy by the hand towards the academy. The pair of exorcists stared at the pair. Come in the afternoon when classes are over, I will guide you with her, Sona said to one of them, and she nodded. Tell me one thing, that boy is… She was interrupted by Sona. Yes, the current Sekiryute Hyoudou Issei, said Sona. So the Sekiryute joined the demon side. What a waste, said the hooded girl. Rather, he wants to take the Rias of the demon faction, said Sona with a drop of sweat on the back of her neck. I see, said the hooded woman. I'll see you here later, Sona Citri with it. The pair left. While Issei was in his class he received a message and read it only to put his phone away after seeing it. What happened to Issei? Did Rias-senpai send you a love message? Mitsuda said, but the brown-haired boy just looked at him bored. I wish it was a damn message about coupons for free burgers. Sigh, this day is going to be tough, he said after seeing the drawing still on the board. Come on, cheer up, said Motohama to show him a cardboard paper bag. I brought you something good, said the one with glasses as they shone mysteriously. And what is it? The brown-haired man said more excitedly, looking to see what it contained, and when he did so he opened his eyes in surprise. Could it be? That's impossible, the brown-haired man said incredulously. I had it very well kept, it's all yours, Motohama said mysteriously, while the class looked at the bag with interest. What is it? Murayama said, taking the bag and looking inside. No way, it's impossible. I saw when that was discontinued, the brunette shouted. Oh, are those magazines ecchi? Aika said as she looked at the contents and was stunned when she saw what was there. This is a relic. Where did you get it? Motohama, the girl with glasses, said. I had it since I was a kid, Motohama said looking at Issei. It's all yours, old man, he said stretching out his fist. Issei burst into tears comically. They are the best friends I could have wished for. Buea, the brown-haired boy said crying. After that the teacher came in and gave the class. Later at the occult club. Rias and her entourage were with their beloved Issei, who had red eyes from crying so much. Rias hugged him to calm him down. Hineko watched this while eating her sweets. Kiba looked at the contents of the bag in shock, and Akeno, she served relaxing tea to Issei. Suddenly Sona entered with a couple of hooded women who, upon entering, made the demons feel a chill. Kiba tensed up too much. If it weren't for whatever was in the bag he would surely have already attacked. Rias, this pair wants to talk to you. I'm leaving. I leave everything in your hands, said the brunette as she left the room. And tell me, why would a couple of church members look for a high-class devil? The redhead asked, raising an eyebrow in intrigue as she noticed Issei standing behind her and massaging her shoulders. We came on a mission entrusted by the church since 4 of the 7 Excalibur swords were stolen by a renegade exorcist, said one of the hooded women, although she was still intrigued to see the brown-haired man do that. We have with us the Excalibur Mimic and the Excalibur Destruction. The ones that were stolen are Blessing, Transparency, Nightmare and Rapidity, said the other hooded girl with pigtails. Ruler's whereabouts are unknown, however we have not come just for that, but to ask you, no, to demand that you do not interfere with our mission, said the one who spoke first. She seemed upset. We will not interfere unless our territory is in danger, and under no circumstances will we ally ourselves with the fallen, said the redhead calmly. That massage was bucking incredible. Well, that's what I wanted to hear. We're leaving, said the hooded woman, but stopped when she saw Issei. It's a shame that the Red Dragon Emperor fell under the charms of a demon, she said seriously. I'm a dragon, I do whatever I want, said the brown-haired boy as he disappeared from sight to stand in front of her, so be careful with your words, human, said the brown-haired boy seriously, and then smiled. We agree, he said in a very relaxed voice. I'm not afraid of you, dragon, she said just to see him laugh. What are you laughing at? The girl said with disgust. You didn't even see me coming in front of you. I smell your fear, and it also smells like lemon cake. Give me a Keno-senpai. He changed his gaze to the brunette who was carrying the tea and a small cake, and she nodded at him. The hooded women were about to leave when Kiba cut them off. Do you know where to look? He said more seriously than usual, and one of the girls looked at him with a raised eyebrow. No, he said this would be. Rias, but you, I'll go with them to look for the Excalibur, she said seriously, but Issei suddenly stood in front of the gray-eyed blonde. You can't go, the brown-haired boy said seriously, until he put his hands on the blonde's shoulders. You definitely have to try this cake, said the brown-haired boy as he began to drag him with a happy smile. You're too spontaneous, Issei-kun, the blonde said with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. The question, demon, are you the survivor of the Holy Sword Project? One of them said while her pigtailed companion looked surprised. Kiba became serious for a few seconds. Issei was pushing a plate of lemon cake in his face. The blonde sighed for some reason. When Issei was around no one could be upset for even a second. What the hell was going through that boy's head? Yes, I am, he said as seriously as he could, if you ignored the fact that Issei kept pushing the plate, or at least until he took it. The church is looking for the leader of the project to execute it. His name is Valper Galilei Securute. Take the plate out of my face, said the girl as Issei literally had a plate in her direction with a serious look. Fine, give it to me. Geez, is it always like this? She asked looking at Rias, who smiled a little. He's in a good mood. They gave him something that made him very happy, said the redhead while holding the cardboard paper bag. Valper Galilei, Kiba said seriously, I already know who I have to kill. It is not necessary for you to give me the tea, Issei-kun, said the blonde. Then they saw how the other exorcist ate it, and the other saw her. Isn't it a sin if the Securite offers it to us, Zenovia? Said the one with pigtails. It's a sin to waste food, Irina said. The blue-haired girl, while eating her piece of cake. Issei was eating his slice until he finished it and looked at Zenobia. How good are you with that sword? The brown-haired boy asked. Good enough to wear, she said seriously. A friendly duel. The brown-haired boy said. Kiba looked at him somewhat interested. For my own good, as long as my superiors don't find out, said Zenobia. What do you say about a duel? The girl with pigtails asked Kiba, who nodded seriously. I will finally test my strength against an Excalibur, thought Rubio. Okay, let's go after another slice, of course, said the brown-haired boy while serving himself one. For my sake, thank you, said Zenobia to thank Akeno, who served her another cup of tea. Chapter 11. Issei looked ahead where Zenobia unwrapped her sword. The brown-haired man had a wooden sword in his hand, and the blue-haired woman looked directly at him somewhat annoyed. Are you underestimating me, Sekiryu? I ask, she is somewhat upset. Apart from the fact that I don't have a sword, I want to test your mastery with this duel. Don't worry, this sword will resist, said the brown-haired man, passing his hand along the edge of the wooden sword. If you say so, said the exorcist as she removed her cloak, revealing a rather revealing black outfit that left nothing to the imagination. What kind of outfit is that? Issei shook his head in doubt. Rias found it cute. The special suit for exorcists allows for more fluid mobility of the muscles, said the exorcist. I see. Well, I have something different. After that, a magic circle came down from head to toe, changing his academy uniform for a black suit with a kind of black light armor. After that, he took out a coin to look at Irina and Kiba. When the coin falls, the duel begins. After that, he threw it in the air. Slowly the coin fell, and when it hit the ground, Kiba appeared in front of Irina, trying to cut with his sword, being successfully repelled. The brown-haired boy launched a slash that was stopped by Zenobia, who moved a little to the left before launching a frontal attack towards Issei, who stopped her with his wooden sword, which was surrounded by a red aura. Zenobia opened her eyes as she noticed that the wooden sword had stopped Excalibur destruction with ease. She stepped back before putting on a smile. This would be a good duel. Issei suddenly launched several slashes that, although they were stopped by Zenobia, cuts appeared on the ground and on her arms, where small wounds became visible. Zenobia became serious and began to attack with her sword, shining clearly, using the sacred attribute in her Excalibur destruction. Issei stopped one of the slashes, and the entire ground beneath him formed a large crater. If I were a demon and I hadn't trained like I did, that blow would have killed me, said the brown-haired boy. Obviously he was lying. That attack can kill a middle-class demon with ease and seriously injure a high-class one. He has talent, but great flaws, thought the brown-haired boy. I see you were able to stop him. You are really strong, Sekiryu, said the blue-haired girl with a challenging smile. The brown-haired boy smiled and then lashed out with a slash that sent the exorcist flying into the air, who had to stab her with the Excalibur to stop her advance, and that only added more destruction to the battlefield. That slash could have easily split me in half. Despite using a wooden sword, he is countering the Excalibur destruction with ease. The Sekiryu is truly fearsome, thought Zenobia, as she saw the destruction in the place where she was before. It's time for a real attack. If you survive, Sekiryu, I will consider you the strongest. No demon has resisted this until now. After that line of thought, he gathered a lot of sacred aura in the blade of the sword, while the ground around him was totally destroyed, throwing rocks to the sides due to the powerful aura. Receive this, Sekiryu Haidu Issei symphony of destruction. After that, he launched himself in the air towards the brown-haired boy. With a slash, he attacked. Issei saw the attack coming in slow motion as he saw everyone with panicked faces, including the other exorcist. He just got serious and summoned the boosted gear. Zenobia opened her eyes in disbelief as she saw all the aura of her sword go out as soon as the Sekiryu took it with his boosted gear, stopping her attack and neutralizing it successfully. Soon everything around her and the brunette turned dark, and then she saw him. The legendary dragon of domination, the Welsh dragon, one of the heavenly dragons, the Red Emperor dragon himself, was holding the blade of his sword with a serious look, like that of a predator looking at its prey about to annihilate it. The dragon of legend, he said, and she trembled. Then everything went back to normal, seeing how Issei looked at her seriously, but with a smile. That attack could have killed more than one high-class devil with relative ease, said the brown-haired boy, smiling to see the pigtailed brunette launch herself towards Kiba at high speed. Kiba, for his part, managed to stop the attack of stabs that Irina was throwing at him by using his sacred gear, taking a black sword. I have been training all this time to defeat Excalibur, so much so that I created this sword. I call itself the cursed sword, saying that he launched himself at high speed, but Irina managed to dodge it in time. Sliff first form. Speed. After that, Kiba disappeared and in an instant appeared in front of Irina, giving a slash that by its impact sent her flying a couple of meters before landing, sticking his sword into the ground, watching as her hands trembled from the strong impact. Sliff second form sword birth. Having said that several swords were born from it, it is constantly changing its form. That skill is from Mimic, Irina said in shock. This sword was made with the sole purpose of defeating each Excalibur. It has cost me a lot to create it, and it is difficult to handle, but I see that I will not be able to defeat you with this form, so Slith third form. Blackout saying that a dark mist surrounded Kiba and then he slashed and the same darkness surrounded Arena, causing her to fall to the ground coughing as she released her sword, and it lost its glow. Slith the Saint Slayer, said Kiba to make his sword disappear, and look at Arena holding out his hand. It was a good duel, said Kiba satisfied to defeat an Excalibur. That sword you created, what other abilities does it have? Arena asked somewhat excitedly as her Excalibur regained its shine and returned to taking the form of a bow which she attached to her arm. For the moment 5 forms and each one has a special ability. The first is speed with the Axle ability which allows me to surpass my own speed a couple of times. The second is the same name as my Sacred Gear Sword Birth, which I use in conjunction with my Sacred Gear to change its form, but it causes a lot of wear and tear when fighting. The third form is Blackout which has the ability to use a cursed and toxic aura that immobilizes anyone who uses sacred energy, and like the previous one it causes a lot of energy wear to use it. The fourth form is Illusion Slayer, which has the ability to cut through illusions. The fifth form is Annihilation which has the ability to cause high destruction with its attacks, but unfortunately I still haven't gotten used to it because of its weight, since it is a two-handed sword quite heavy, said Kiba as he dropped to the grass sitting down. An incredible ability I must say, said Zenobia looking at Issei. Well, there's a reason you've trained so much, right? Although I see that you're satisfied with this result, Issei said, lowering his wooden sword. Well, I've seen your skill, the brown-haired boy said, relaxing. Well? Zenobia said intrigued. You pass but you have to improve your balance, you need a second sword to help you keep your balance, he said in a calm chestnut tone. I see, I'll consider it. Well, I think working with you won't be difficult, said the brown-haired boy, attracting everyone's attention. I'm not on the side of the demons, and in any case, I just want to make sure I keep my Rias safe. Well, the saying goes, keep your friends close, said Issei. And your enemies more. Good point. Security Haidu Issei, said Zenobia to nod. We wouldn't exactly be allies, but we wouldn't have to worry about demons. Either sounds perfect to me. Yes, it would be the best for us, Arena said, but then she remembered something. Do you know anything about a girl named Asia Argento? Arena asked. Why are you looking for her? Issei asked seriously. The church is looking for her, but she just disappeared suddenly, Arena said seriously. I see he's in the underworld, said Issei, leaving everyone shocked except Rias. The underworld? So she was turned into a demon, Arena said in shock. No, in the zone of the dead, Issei said while looking at Rias, the church where she was exploded, including the fallen angels that were there, the brown-haired man said seriously while looking at the exorcists again. How do you know? Maybe you? Arena said, covering her mouth with her hands. I was there, I killed the fallen, said the brown-haired man. Collateral damage, I don't blame you, it happens often, she said calmly. Not exactly, she's there, but she's still alive, Issei said, making Arena and Zenobia look at each other and then at him. But that area is under Hades, Zenobia said, suddenly opening her eyes. Rather, Persephone exorcist on the roof of the building, a subject with armor was on the roof. Who are you? Zenobia said out loud. Gordon the Minotaur, a specter of Hades, said the burly man. And what is Hades looking for here? Zenobia said defensively. Avoid another stupid war and unnecessary bloodshed. Hades-sama is fed up with so much bloodshed, so he decided to send his specters to stop Kabal. Be grateful to Hades-sama, said the man, while next to him, there was another who took that man by the shoulder. Ho Kabal, the exorcist shouted with wide eyes and slight fear. The cadre-level fallen angel Akeno said worriedly along with the rest. High-class devil in charge of this city, Rias Gremory, I Sylphid of Basilisk request that you allow us to help stop Kabal. Rias turned to look at Issei, who nodded. Well, I agree if it's to prevent Kabal from doing his job, Rias said as Issei took her by the shoulder. Do you have a place to stay? The brown-haired boy asked the ghosts. Of course, Queen of Alron received the funds for the mission, said Minotaur Gordon with a smile. Behind him was a guy with dark pink hair who looked at him with doubt. Isn't it supposed that the one who received the funds was Sylphid? He said, and Sylphid shook his head. I thought you had received them, Gordon, he said, and suddenly the three turned pale. Well, Security, we have nowhere to stay, said the poor guy resignedly. Then Issei looked at the exorcists. And you? Zenobia looked at him and then said, embarrassed. We were planning to stay at the church, but you said it exploded, said the blue-haired girl somewhat depressed. Well, if there is no problem on both sides, you can stay at my house, said the brown-haired boy calmly. Sure, kid, you know what people think of Hades and his servants, said Sylphid calmly. If they wanted to do something, they would have already done it, especially when we were in our fight, said the brown-haired boy, shrugging his shoulders. I see, I'll take the chair, Gordon suddenly shouted. Hey, I wanted that one, Zenobia exclaimed angrily. The one who asks first wins, girl, that's life. Issei looked at Rias with doubt. I thought everyone wanted a room. Ice, they don't know you have a mansion, she said with a drop of sweat on the back of her neck, and the exorcists, like the ghosts, looked at them with doubt. Mansion, Irina said looking at the brown-haired boy, and he nodded. Do you think I can take a bath when I get there? She asked. Well, each room has its own private bathroom, so I don't see any problem with you doing it, said the brunette as if it were nothing, while the two exorcists looked at him in disbelief. In the meantime, I'll call Vincent, it's getting late, said the brunette while watching the sunset, and the others nodded, while Rias gave him her cell phone. She had taken it from him before starting the fight. Later. Issei was lying in his bed next to the redeed when Rias spoke to him. What a way to make the exorcists not suspect that those are your subordinates, or be surprised if more arrive, she said, curled up next to the brown-haired boy. Well, you almost had a panic attack when I told you everything. I'm surprised you didn't judge me when you found out, said the brown-haired boy. Well, everyone hides their secrets for their own reasons. In fact, Rias became shy. I'm glad you trusted me, she said, smiling to give the brown-haired boy a kiss on the lips. I love you, Hyoudou, Issei, she said, touched. Chapter 12. Issei was having breakfast with his beloved Rias while he watched Irina and Zenobia devour their food with great joy. He also saw the three specters eating more calmly. His phone rang notifying him of a text message which he smiled upon reading, and that caused curiosity in those present. Is something wrong, Securite-sama? Alron asked with doubt. It's a message from my father, apparently he's coming to parent observation day, said the brown-haired boy, but poor Rias choked upon hearing about that day. And that reaction, Rias Gremory? Zenobia asked with intrigue. Most likely my brother and my father will come. I wish they wouldn't, but Grafia must have told them about that day, said the redeed with annoyance and some embarrassment. If you want, I'll kick their asses, Issei said, causing everyone present to choke. Hey, I don't mean to brag, but I'm probably the most powerful Securite in history, the brown-haired boy said indignantly. You talk about kicking my Lucifer's base like it's nothing. How did you expect us to react? Irina said, shocked as she waved her arms in alarm. Boy, I don't know you, but you're talking about a super demon at the level of even high gods. Boy, he's in the top 20 of the most powerful in the world, said Gordon as a minotaur, looking at the brown-haired boy. By the way, I'm in the top 100, he said, pointing proudly at himself. The Kabal too, said the brown-haired boy smiling, and I'm going to beat him, he said confidently. I admit that you are strong, kid, but that guy fought and survived against a biblical god. Damn, the three of us are barely enough to fight him if he were to use his war armor. You know, the one he used in the great biblical war with which he massacred an army of angels and demons alone, said Sylphid, worried about it, and with good reason. Kabal fighting seriously was a real threat at this rate. We will have to ask for reinforcements if he were to unleash his true power, and I doubt he was cut off when he saw Issei's serious face. You worry about nothing, I even have a pocket dimension prepared just in case, and I have the ability to transfer my power to others, not just multiply it. This battle is won before it even begins, said the brown-haired boy to get up and use a magic circle to change into his Kuo Academy uniform. I'm leaving, I'm going to class, let me know if you discover anything, said the brown-haired boy to leave with Rias, who followed him closely. Later at the academy. Issei noticed how furious Ona Citri was, and scolding the teachers, she finally erased the embarrassing drawing of the shared umbrella with the names of Rias and Issei. He smiled a little when he saw that it was finally deleted, but he noticed the mocking smile on his pair of friends, and he knew that this was not over yet. So you want to play? You chose the wrong person to play with, the brown-haired boy thought mischievously, while he noticed how Kiryu smiled at him with complicity. It seems that the pervert with glasses wants to enter the game. She knew her decision to join my team, Kiryu, she knew her decision. Then she noticed how Rias came to her living room trying to calm Sona down, who actually calmed down, and the redeed went on to look at her boyfriend. Are we going to eat ice? She extended her hand to him. Issei took it and looked at it with a happy smile. Come on, sweetheart, he said, managing to make most of the people present blush without noticing. After arriving at the occult club room, the couple began their lunch, eating with smiles on their faces, until Akeno looked at the pair and smiled evilly. And when do they make me an aunt? That question made Issei choke, who seemed to drown. Rias for her part blushed and became really shy while playing with her hair. Yes. Noticing how the brown-haired boy put his hands on his neck and his face turned purple, finally he fell unconscious. Issei-senpai is unconscious, said the white-haired girl, which made Rias react, who began to squeeze the brown-haired boy, worried. Ara, help him with a breath. Mouth-to-mouth, Yufufu laughed Akeno, just to see how you laugh at what she said. Suddenly Issei's arm surrounded Ria's head, increasing the closeness of both, and what seemed like mouth-to-mouth resuscitation ended in a passionate kiss on the floor of the club. Shall we leave? Kiba asked the pair of girls. Let's stay, Yufufu, the black-haired girl laughed shamelessly. Issei-senpai, you perverted Rias butchu, the white-haired girl said harshly as the couple separated and were embarrassed by their passionate outburst. Before anyone else could speak, the door to the club was quickly opened by the pair of exorcists and the three specters. Gordon walked over to Ria's desk and put a map of the city on it. We have found 3 possible locations where Kabal could be hiding, said Zenobia, ignoring that the couple were just getting up from the ground. Irina pointed at the first of the possible locations with her finger, while everyone became serious. The first is an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Kuo. Apart from that, it is believed that there is a nest of renegade demons in the area. He said this would be. Sylphid pointed out another location on the map. The second suspicious location is this large mansion in the mountains. It is said that fallen angels have been sighted in the area, and there have been disappearances of people in the area lately, he said, while marking the location with a red marker. Alruain pointed to a spot in the mountains. The third suspicious area is precisely in the old observatory of the city. Our contacts located the renegade priest Fried Selzen in the place, and there is a suspicion that the genocidal Archbishop Valper Galilei is there, after finishing saying that both Kaneko and Kiba became serious and even upset. In the first area, it is believed that it is possible that at least one of the Excalibur is kept there, but it could be a clear trap due to the number of renegade demons in the area. There may be a very small chance that there is actually an Excalibur there, said Gordon of the Minotaur, looking at Rias, who nodded. In the second one, it is most likely that Kabal is found. Our infiltrators in the place have confirmed it, but there is no doubt about one thing: there are at least more than 500 fallen angels of medium and low rank. Followers of Kabal, all of them, and traitors of Gregory. A fairly high number of renegade exorcists was also confirmed, many of them followers of the fallen angel Agmahel, who is a high-level fallen angel. Gordon continued of the third one. It is more than certain that the stolen Excalibur are there, and there is bad news. It seems that another sacred sword called Hodoclear was stolen. This left the demons present in shock. What the hell do you plan to do with so many holy swords? Akeno said, losing her cool. We don't know, but for now we will attack the first location, since while it could be a trap, it is the least dangerous location in the short term, but in the long term it will be a real problem, the Minotaur Spectre finished, looking at everyone seriously. I'm going, Kiba said seriously, but was stopped by Irina. Save your energy, tonight we will go to the third location where Valper Galilei is. Upon hearing that, Kiba nodded seriously, mentally preparing himself for tonight. I will finally bring justice to you. You can finally rest easy, thought Kiba as he sat down. Issei stood up. Rias, I leave it to the teachers to go subdue those renegade demons, said the brown-haired boy, following the other 5 out of the classroom. After leaving the club room, they teleported to what would be the first location. Guo City abandoned iron factory. The pressure was felt in the place, and almost instantly Issei raised a barrier in the area, while the exorcists unsheathed their respective Excalibur, and the specters looked seriously at the place. Aurora alerted of the impending battle. Several small family members came out of the building and went straight against Irina and Zenobia, ignoring all the men in the place. The other renegade demons also came out, which had a clearly evil look. Among them was one who was an older man with a shen hair and pointed ears. I've heard about you, renegade demon Maverick. It is said that you experiment with alchemy and magic to create beasts. I also read that you are a depraved, said Zenobia, looking at her enemy when she noticed someone in particular, a renegade priest. Wait, you are the one they call the legendary sage, she said, and Irina was surprised. Why would a renegade priest ally himself with a renegade demon? Irina said with intrigue. The answer is simple, girl, said one of them, smiling. The reason we all came together, said another demon coming out of the factory. The breasts, the renegade priest finished. An awkward silence filled the air, even the tension in the place was gone. You're telling me you betrayed the church for breasts? The brunette said with a drop on the back of his neck. The brat, like you wouldn't understand. Anyway, it's time to act. Ilvery emerges inside the building. A kind of chimera between a plant and a dragon came out. Issei heard the gesture of indignation that Drake made. Gordon simply raised an eyebrow at that, and Sylphid laughed mockingly, but it was Alruain who frowned in anger. We wasted our time on this nonsense, he said angrily. Eyes, I'll take care of it, said the brown-haired boy as his boosted gear manifested. Comrade, burn that lack of respect for dragons and their creators, sentenced Drake angrily. Suddenly Issei acquired the same dragonic appearance that he had in his fight against Razor, and without further ado, he released a powerful flame towards the beast, which was reduced to ashes in an instant. My creation, you bastard don't even know what its purpose was, said the renegade demon. He would give a fruit that he didn't finish speaking, because the brown-haired boy pointed at them with his boosted gear. Don't waste my time, he said in a serious tone. Die. After that, a dragon shoot was fired, and in a powerful explosion, the place was reduced to nothing before the astonished gaze of the pair of exorcists. There's only one thing you should never do, it's anger, Issei Sama, Gordon thought with a smile. Chapter 13. Issei looked at everyone present in the occult club as he had just given his report on what happened just a couple of hours ago and how he destroyed the renegade demons after planning what he considered a stupidity and waste of time. Really no one could argue otherwise. Kiba felt anxious because he would go with the exorcists and Kaneko to attack the third location where Valper Galilei was located. Issei for his part was lying on Ria's lap as they prepared to go attack the second base, and since Ona Citri was informed of it, she herself would go to the place with her entourage. The Spectres for their part reported that some more would join them since there really was a huge army of fallen angels in the place, and although they were of low and medium rank, the so-called fallen angel Ag Mahel was quite powerful, in fact, enough to be considered almost a cadre. Without further ado, the Citri entourage arrived accompanied by several Spectres and among them 4 that Rias quickly identified and spoke to Issei in the ear. "Those 4 weren't supposed to be dead," he said to Issei in a low voice. "They were perfect material to be ghosts under my command," the brown-haired man answered in a murmur that luckily no one heard except for one person. After the preparations, Kiba and company withdrew. With Kiba. The blonde, gray-eyed man watched attentively as he walked towards the observatory calmly because he knew that in a state of anger he would lose imminently, but by remaining calm, it was more likely to win. For her part, Zenobia was somewhat restless, and it was not for nothing since they were on the eve of a decisive battle, since they knew that it would not be easy to deal with the numbers, so she would have to fight with everything. Irina was eager to punish the sinners as she put it. For her part, it was Kaneko who was more restless because it wasn't that she distrusted the exorcists, but she didn't feel comfortable having 2 sacred swords nearby, much less after almost dying a couple of months ago. Without a doubt, knowing that the person who tried to kill her 2 months ago would be there in that place made her feel fear, but seeing the smile that Kiba gave her calmed her down. After a little more than half an hour they arrived at the place, and then they saw a flash of light rise into the sky. In the place was Valper Galilei with 4 of the Excalibur, and in the center the Hodoclear. However, they were attacked by several fallen angels and renegade priests. Valper Galilei. Kiba shouted in anger and charged at a fallen angel who confidently made a spear of light, but sword birth. After that several swords appeared and caused several cuts on the fallen angel, but he was not seriously injured. For her part, Irina attacked several mid-level fallen angels, managing to mortally wound many of them when fighting together with Zenobia, who killed without any mercy with each attack. Kaneko, for her part, was launching attacks at every fallen angel who tried to attack Kiba from behind when she noticed the smile that the renegade priest she had fought with several months ago had. "Wow, I guess you missed me, didn't you, you bucking demon? I still don't know how you escaped, but today I will finish what I started that day," he said, unholstering a pair of revolvers and shooting at the white-haired girl, who took cover while grabbing a huge rock. "Don't run away, you cowardly brat," he shouted, but jumped to the side, avoiding a large rock. For his part, Valper watched everything with a smile, and it only grew bigger when he noticed that the exorcists were standing exactly where he wanted them to, so without further ado, he began a kind of ritual. Both Zenobia and Irina felt their swords being snatched from their hands as a magic circle rendered them immobile and at the mercy of the remaining renegade priests, but Kiba along with Kaneko managed to get them out of the magic circle. "This is getting complicated," Kiba said with annoyance. "Without my Excalibur mimic I can't fight," Irina said worriedly. Kiba created a sword with his sword birth while looking at Zenobia. "I still have a spare sword," Zenobia said seriously as Kiba nodded, and they watched as the Excalibur and Hodoclear merged into a single sword. "Yes, I've finally done it, my biggest dream, I've managed to resurrect Excalibur," Valper shouted in ecstasy. "Come on old man, give me my precious Excalibur," Chan said Fried Zelzen madly as he watched the sword float in the air. "Take it Fried and kill those demons, we have to meet with Kakabiel and destroy the city," said Valper, while Kiba tightened the hilt of his sword. "But first of all, you young demon, I must thank you." This confused Kiba. "Thanks to the sacrifice of you and the other boys of the Sacred Sword Project I have managed to complete this," said Valper, taking out of his pocket a kind of blue crystal. "That crystal?" Irina said shocked. "That's what Irina received for carrying Excalibur mimic," Zenobia thought seriously. "What is that?" Kiba said, staring at it, feeling the urge to take said crystal as if his heart was calling him. "You two alone could never wield an Excalibur, no matter how much faith you had. After that I discovered what the cause was, and all of that turned out to be due to the lack of a certain sacred element in each of you, and then I came to a conclusion. To take out all the sacred elements from each of you and store them in these crystals," Valper said excitedly while Kiba looked at him attentively, but with a certain level of anger. "Haha, the other boys couldn't resist more than one without going crazy or dying in the attempt, but I consumed 5 of those. I guess that makes me someone special," Fried shouted as he attacked, being stopped by Irina and thrown a few meters back. "So there was no reason to kill us," Kiba said angrily. "You were just ingredients for something even bigger. Once you had served your purpose I threw you away," he said smiling maliciously. All this time we thought we were part of something important and we were just ingredients. Kiba said in shock while Kaneko looked at him sadly. Take this one, it's from that time I've already reached the point where I can create them in mass. Valper looked at the crystal and threw it at Kiba's feet while he took it with both hands and brought it to his chest. Eyes, he said quietly, but soon everything went dark for him in an instant. A low female voice sounded behind him and he looked at a girl. She was one of the Sacred Sword Project. Bliss. Kiba said in shock. Hey, don't let that old man's nonsense affect you, said a brown-haired boy behind him who smiled at him. Yoon, he said still in shock. Wake up, a girl hit him on the head and then hugged him and put her head on his chest. I missed you so much, she said in a soft voice. Emily, Kiba said as he began to hug her. I always believed that it was wrong to be the only one to survive. You all had dreams, and Kiba opened his eyes when the blonde kissed him, silencing him quickly. I've already fulfilled mine, she said smiling. Live you to live and fight for your future. We put our faith in you because we wanted at least you to live. It's time for us to leave, but we want you to know something. We will always be here, said the girl pointing to her chest. Remember that our hearts will always be there. United, finished Kiba as everything was filled with light. See you Yudo in the next life. After that the place shined more and then Kiba opened his eyes seeing Valper already freed. My companions never wanted revenge, but I definitely can't help but destroy the evil that lies before me, said the gray-eyed man. You're a fool, you should have taken the crystal and left, although we would have killed you anyway, said Valper smiling, but then his face showed fear. A lot of energy was concentrated around Kiba, generating a kind of black and white whirlwind which was noticeably quite dense. Sword birth, Kiba shouted as his sword, the one he had created to destroy Excalibur, absorbed that concentration of energy. Slif, the sword of betrayal, the sword that stands in balance between the sacred and the cursed. A sacred demonic sword. After that the energy changed the edge of the sword from black to silver, while the center of the sword glowed dark red and characters of the demonic language were written on it. What the hell? Valper screamed in shock. I will not stay behind, I will give you support. Servant of Gremory, said Zenobia and moved her left arm to one side of her. Petra, Basilius and the Virgin Mary, hear my call and allow me the freedom of this sword. A distortion occurred at her side and a chained sword came out of it and the chains broke. Holy sword Durandal. A sacred sword Durandal, that's impossible. My research never got to the point of being able to create a Durandal wielder, Valper said in panic. Unlike Arena or that guy, I am a born carrier, she said, pointing her sword at Freed. Don't think too much of yourself, bitch, he said and launched himself towards Zenobia, who slashed and a part of Freed's sword was damaged and a fragment fell to the ground. That was transparency, said Freed just to dodge Kiba in time. Axel, after saying that Freed was barely able to evade it a little, but he noticed how a fragment of his Excalibur broke. Damn it, Freed shouted, creating several copies of himself. Illusion Slayer, after making a cut the replicas were destroyed and another fragment of the sword fell broken to the ground. This crap isn't working properly, the sword became bigger. Feel the power of destruction. Annihilation, Kiba shouted and his sword became bigger and Freed's sword lost another fragment. Damn, all I have left is the useless blessing and mimic, shouted Freed, but his hand began to burn. He's rejecting me, said Freed, and then the sword itself cut off his arm and it went to Arena at high speed, who looked at it and took it in the air doing a somersault and falling with one knee on the ground. No damn it, Freed shouted, only to be decapitated by Kiba himself. Damn it, the Haudaclear reacted to the pigtailed exorcist, but still, what the hell is that sword? The sacred and the demonic cannot unite, they are opposite energies. The only thing that could make something like that happen would be those who handle those energies. Valper remained silent and then began to laugh, causing intrigue in those present. True, it makes sense if you think about it. That means that not only the demon kings died, but God did too, he said in shock. What does it matter? Die, Kiba shouted as he launched himself towards the. No wait, Valper screamed, but soon his head rolled on the ground. It's finally over, Kiba said, but he saw the pair of exorcists. Don't believe a madman like that, he said, seeing how these two looked in shock. You're right, he was just a heretic, Zenobia said. For Valper everything was dark when he noticed that he was in front of a throne and on it sat a skeleton dressed in a tunic with royal ornaments and precious jewels. Who are you? Valper stammered in fear. You mortals call me many things, the rich man, the father of all riches, or simply Hades, said the skeleton as his eyes glowed red like blood. What will become of me? Valper said in panic. That's obvious, Valper Galilei, the Tartarus, he said while Hypnos took Valper by the shoulder, while he screamed in panic asking for mercy. What Issei? The brown-haired boy was already looking in the distance at the mansion in the mountains where Kabal was supposedly located. Rias came to his side and looked at Akeno, who was nervous about the battle that was coming, and it was no wonder since they would face Kabal, one of the leaders of Grigori, although according to what she knew from Issei's specters, is that Grigori a few hours ago notified The other factions of Kakabiel's desertion from their ranks and placed a price on his head. Apparently he almost killed another of the leaders who was Barakiel and killed several fallen angels under the command of Issei, the vice-governor of the fallen angels, and Penemu, another of the leaders of the fallen angels. Chapter 14. Issei walked next to Rias, who was accompanied by Akeno, while the specters of Hades followed them silently. I look ahead, seeing the mansion where the fallen angel of cadre level, Kakabiel, is supposed to be. Without warning, several spears of light headed towards the group, but Issei used his own dragon aura, destroying the spears on the spot before the astonished gaze of Akeno, who looked at the back of the person leading the group. Issei raised his gaze, observing a fallen angel among all of them, his light blue hair and arrogant look with a wine-colored Victorian-style outfit, waving in the air with his 5 pairs of wings. "Agmail, right," said Issei in a dry tone. "The same, Sekiruite Hyoudou. Issei, my father Kakabiel offers you a deal. Hand over the demonic heirs and the pair of exorcists, in exchange we will let you live," he said in an arrogant tone, but at the same time the power behind those words could be felt. "I refuse, now hand over your head calmly and without complaint," Issei said in a serious tone. "Strong words for a simple and weak dragon. Not even your companions could even touch a single one of my feathers. I am a cadre level fallen angel, despite not being one of them, yet well, it's not like that matters now," he said in a mocking tone. "You are just a weakling hiding behind the skirts of your father and mother Agmail. I, Gordon, as a minotaur, will take care of you personally." Gordon took a step and the fallen angel smiled. "Hades is a fool to send his specters to their deaths. Well, I don't judge him, he never leaves his territory, so he knows nothing of the world." Agmail shot off towards the mountain, destroying part of the terrain after an attack by one of Hades' specters, the basilisk Sylphid himself, which jumped into battle followed by his 2 companions. "Forgive the impatience of my dear son, Gremory heiress and Barakiel's daughter. I hope you give me a good fight," said a beautiful woman with 4 pairs of wings. "I am Finel. I hope you give me a good fight to bring your beautiful heads to my beloved Kakabiel," said the beautiful woman. "Sekiruite Hyoudou. Issei, join me now and live," said the same Kakabiel who moved right next to Finel. "I declined. I'm not interested in serving someone who is weaker than me," declared the brown-haired boy. "If that's what you want, then die." Kakabiel launched a huge spear of light which Issei destroyed with a dragon shoot while he continued until he eliminated many of the fallen angels. "You're going to need more than that if you want to face me," Issei said as he watched out of the corner of his eye as Rias and Akeno attacked Finel as a team. "Then play with my pets." After that, several copies of Cerberus appeared in a magic circle, but his eyes widened in disbelief when he saw how they bowed to the brown-haired boy. "How?" The cadre left the question in the air with disbelief. "They know someone really powerful when they see them," Issei said as he removed the beasts with a magic circle. "My apologies, but they are my pets now," the brown-haired boy said mockingly. "I see that if you want something done right you have to do it yourself," said Kakabiel, while an orb of light was in his hand, and this glow transported the brown-haired boy and the cadre to a pocket dimension. But the specters. They looked at Agmail seriously while he was alone, shaking the dirt off his clothes to look at Sylphid. "You really need to attack me from behind to be able to face me, but I must tell you that they don't have the level to face me, nice blizzard," he said mockingly. "I barely put any power into it. I didn't want to leave a trail of blood in the place and upset the young master," said the basilisk, leaving the fallen angel in doubt. "Enough talk." Agmail launched a beam of light toward Sylphid, but the 3 specters raised their cosmos and successfully cancelled the attack. "They are strong, I admit, but I am in another league." After that, he was surrounded by a strong aura and launched into the attack, being stopped by Gordon, who was dragged a few meters before raising his arm. Brand Axe Crusher. After that, Agmail received a slight damage in one of his wings, which made him angry. Light of cows. After that, the place lit up, causing a huge explosion and throwing away the 3 specters who stared at each other. Now they would leave the games. It was time to fight seriously. Symphony of the Fallen. After that, Agmail played a small black violin from which a wave came out that almost hit the specters. This symphony can only be heard once. After that, they will die since their internal organs will be destroyed. Good luck with this. After saying that, he created multiple barriers around him to stay safe while he played his mysterious melody. "For a fallen angel of cadre level you are not much of a deal. Whatever Issei Sama expects you to be defeated, do not expect mercy," said Queen of Alron. Gordon concentrated all his cosmos to the maximum, just as Sylphid and Alrain did the same. "Brand Axe Crusher," Gordon shouted, destroying almost all the barriers, while Agmail looked at this in disbelief. Annihilation Flap. Sylphid launched his powerful attack, destroying the rest of the barriers, leaving Agmail exposed, who looked on in disbelief. Bloodflower Scissors launched his Alrain attack, while behind him the image of a guillotine was created that cut Agmail's chest, who fell to the ground. "Well, I must say that they are strong," said Agmail, getting up with a not very deep wound in his chest, "but the time has come to stop the games." However, he was suddenly impaled by several violet spears of light that emanated a lot of darkness and cosmos. "For the glory of our young master," said a man dressed in spectre armor and fallen angel wings. "By your divine majesty." Agmail was impaled by more spears while a blonde girl with pigtails in her spectre armor and her wings of fallen Lucian gracefully. "For the honor of our master and prince of the underworld," said a blue-haired woman who, like the previous pair, impaled Agmail with more spears. "For our future king Hyoudou," Issei shouted a black-haired girl coming down with the rest of the fallen angels reincarnated as specters, ending up impaling the cadre-level fallen angel on all his limbs, ending his life. "Meddlers, we haven't finished it yet. I wanted to break his wings or leave him lying in the mud," said Gordon angrily. "Well, it's not for nothing that they are the special troop that the Nado-sama prepared for Issei-sama," said Alrain as the Sylphid shrugged, and they retreated from the area where Issei's new specters were taking Agmail's corpse in a magic circle. "With Rias." Finel looked at the pair of demons in front of her with a sly smile as she began to laugh lightly. "What's so funny?" Rias asked. "Who would have thought that I would face the sister of the Mau Lucifer and at the same time the daughter of Barakiel? I'm surprised that she survived, especially when she discovered the truth after the death of her beloved Shuri," she said, and noticed how Akeno's face changed drastically. "What the hell do you mean? What truth are you talking about?" Akeno said in anger. "The death of your beloved mother, it was part of my plans and that of my beloved Kakabiel," he said, leaving Akeno in shock. "What?" Akeno said in shock. "Did you really think that the Himejima clan killed your mother? Well, my beloved husband delayed your father as much as possible. I personally sent Renegade Onyaji to finish you and your mother off, but your damn father managed to arrive in time to save you," Finel said, quite upset, but then her anger turned to an evil smile. "But plans have changed. Your body will serve so that my beloved son Agmail can give us a beautiful grandson with the powers of Barakiel." Rias was enraged while Akeno went from shock to complete anger, so without further ado, she launched a full-power lightning attack, and due to her distraction, Finel was unable to dodge in time, suffering minor injuries. Rias launched several attacks of her power of destruction at several fallen angels who wanted to support their leader, dying quickly from the attacks. Finel furiously created a rather large spear of light towards Rias, who watched the attack coming at her, but at that moment the spear was absorbed by a mirror and reflected back towards Finel, who covered herself with her wings. "Sona, I'm glad you're here," Rias said more calmly. "We just finished putting up a barrier to isolate the battlefield, but as a result only Tsubaki and Saji have been able to accompany me," said the pink-eyed girl. "That will be enough, let's finish this," said Rias as she watched Akeno launch incredible attacks towards Finel, who already had several wounds on his body, but continued to respond to the attacks with skill. Akeno was frustrated as the fallen angels interfered in her battle against the one who was responsible for her mother's death, but then she noticed that in the distance a blonde boy with a strange white armor was seen who raised his fist towards the fallen angels. "Six diamond dust," shouted the blonde boy, throwing a kind of freezing ray that defeated several fallen angels on the spot. Another one with black hair and dark green armor arrived immediately and threw a punch from where he was, while his cosmos was lit. "Ascending dragon fist," he shouted, and from his fist, an oriental dragon formed from cosmos came out of the subject's fist, killing several fallen angels on the spot. Another one arrived and with some strange chains, attacked another contingent of fallen angels, chains of Andromeda. The last one was a chestnut in light silver armor, who after a few movements raised his fist to another large number of fallen angels, Pegasus meteors. After that several fallen angels fell victims to the chestnut's technique. "I see that we have arrived in time, we will take care of the fallen angels." "You take care of them," said the boy to continue fighting several fallen angels with the other three. "The Knights of Athenia," Finel said in shock, but then looked at Akeno. "They are only bronze knights, so sooner or later they will die," she said with a mocking smile, but dodged an attack directed by Sona Citrierises. "Just hand over your heads calmly," she said annoyed, but then noticed that her foot was held by a whip that came from Saji. "My energies are being," she said in a calm voice, but did not notice the huge red magic circle of the Gremory clan at her side. Akeno launched her most powerful lightning attack towards the magic circle, causing it to become much more powerful, but Finel dodged it. However, Tsubaki used her sacred gear, reflecting the attack towards Finel, who received it directly and with double the power, although Tsubaki fell unconscious due to overexertion. A heart-rending scream came from Finel, who felt like electricity was reaching all parts of his body, while he had mild convulsions. "That was for my mother," said Akeno as a fallen angel wing emerged from her back, "and this for my father." With it she created a spear of light, and without further ado, she stuck it into Finel's chest, ending his life. Suddenly an explosion caught everyone's attention. They noticed that in a crater was Kakabiel with his war armor destroyed and Issei with wounds in some parts of his body. But Issei time before. Issei looked attentively at Kakabiel, who smiled maliciously towards him. "This is your last chance, Ekurute, join me or die," said the cadre with a mocking smile. "I have a couple of words for you," said the brown-haired boy, calling the attention of the balance breaker cadre. Chapter 15. Hades walked beside his faithful dog, who had an imposing look on his 3 heads, waiting to taste what his master was about to offer him. Several of his servants looked with fear at the arrival of Cerberus, all of them worried about that young woman who had just had her little baby who was born after an incessant struggle for his birth. Each of them wanted to intervene, but they knew that their master would not listen to them and would also punish them for meddling in the affairs of a god. Hades, imposing and serious, opened the door of the room, observing Rhadamanthys, Thanatos, Hypnos and Pandora on the sides of the bed, looking at him seriously and helplessly. They knew what Cerberus was coming for. Miki looked at her father in fear as she held her newborn baby in her arms and trembled. "Give it to me," Hades said, annoyed. Miki trembled and looked at him with as much determination as her fear allowed her to muster, and said "N. Never," she said in fear as her face changed to terror as she saw how Hades raised his hand but suddenly stopped, and then she saw him. Those eyes were so beautiful, never in his existence did he believe he would see something so beautiful, amber eyes and as bright as they were alive, but more than that was seeing what they were in themselves, eyes capable of captivating gods and driving mortals mad with a love for whoever would possess them so deep that they could never escape from them. Her eyes immediately filled with wonder as she watched the tiny baby smile at her, only to feel the extreme power the baby was born with. He turned to see his faithful dog only to see him bowing to the baby, putting their heads directly on the floor, then he knew, "What is her name?" Hades asked, looking at the shocked look of his daughter and his faithful servants, at what the Cerberus did only to follow the dog and kneel before the baby. "Issei, hide you Issei," he said tenderly. At the door, Persephone looked at Miki next to the baby and smiled. She instantly became fond of the infant along with her daughters, Marcaria and Melano, who saw their half-sister happy. "Issei," Hades said with a smile, "it is a beautiful name and worthy of someone of your stature," said the father of all riches, only to extend his hand to the side, and suddenly a golden cradle inlaid with beautiful stones and diamonds, next to the most beautiful gems ever seen will form. "Put the finest and softest silk blankets on the planet on that cradle." "It better be that way," said the father of all riches as the infant extended his hands. "Without a doubt you are my most worthy heir that could ever exist," he said in a soft voice. Issei was standing right in front of Kabal, who was smiling self-satisfiedly, but for the brown-haired boy, the excitement of fighting someone who had resisted a fight against the biblical god was immeasurable. "No one is going to interrupt us here, Security. No one is going to come and save you," Kabal said in a mocking tone. "Wouldn't it be better if no one came to save you?" she said playfully as she looked at him with a small but clearly mocking smile. "Once you die my plan will begin," Kabal said seriously. "Big words, prove it to me then," said the brown balance breaker. "Welsh dragon balance breaker." A torrent of fire surrounded the brown-haired boy as the place shook violently. Kabal sweated slightly at the heat, but he had faced dragons with hotter flames, and they all fell. "I see the balance breaker, I guess for the first time in centuries I'll get serious, haha," the fallen laughed mockingly. Suddenly the place shook quite intensely, and a huge light covered Kabal only for it to shoot up, revealing a beautiful armor that was reminiscent of the stars. "Feel honored that you will fight with that only fallen angel who survived a battle against the biblical god, the one who saw armies die in front of him at his hands," Kabal said proudly, only to be hit hard by a fist directly in his face. "Never let your guard down in a battle," Issei told him seriously, only to stop an axe kick with both of his arms to be hit by a fist, surrounded by light on his chest, and being shot backwards, until he fell into several buildings as they fell due to the impact. "I didn't do it," said the fallen one to throw several spears of light towards the chestnut. Issei raised his hand and created several dragon shoots and destroyed the spears of light. He immediately raised his fist as it collided with Kabal's, and the ground beneath the two was destroyed due to the strong impact. Kabal created a sword of light and with it he tried to cut Issei in two. Issei destroyed the sword of light with one kick and kicked Kabal's head, destroying half the city inside the pocket dimension. "Impertinent brat, you are certainly quite strong," said the fallen one to immediately create several gigantic spears of light and then look at the brown-haired boy. "This dimension I hope and endure this, farewell Security." After that he threw them towards the brown-haired boy, who felt the gigantic power behind those spears of light. Finally the spears hit, the boom of the explosion was of biblical proportions. The buildings and houses in the pocket dimension, which was an exact copy of the city of Kuo, rose into the air, completely turned into rubble. Kabal did not look at his attack smiling, but above all at the destruction it caused. He already wanted to see the world fall in this way. Humans, yokai, vampires, mythological beings, everything would fall in the same way. However, his smile disappeared when he saw that the explosion was increasing in size and brightness. It was then that her eyes came to the answer, and she covered herself with her wings while crossing her arms and closing her eyes. The roar was even worse, and now it was burning rubble, and the force of the explosion was even worse than before. When everything calmed down at the bottom of the titanic crater, there was a certain implacable and neat crimson armor, as if nothing had even touched it. In the air, equally imposing and without the slightest damage, was the fallen angel who looked at the destruction with a smile. "I didn't think I'd ever seen a Sekiryu worthy of that name, but let me tell you that this is nothing, not even the smallest part of my power," he said in a mocking fall. "It would be a shame if you were so weak," said the brown-haired boy in the same way. Without further ado, they launched themselves at each other and collided their fists, causing even more destruction at the scene. Issei quickly kicked the fallen man who stopped his foot, only to launch a kick to the brown-haired man's face, who covered himself with his forearm. Words were no longer necessary, the time for talking was over, at this point it was kill or be killed. After stopping each physical attack from the other, they separated. They both knew it was time for the final attack, to demonstrate their power with a single technique. The Kabal raised his finger and a huge glow came from it. On his finger there was a tiny sphere of energy, but there is a saying, appearances can be deceiving. For his part, Issei raised his arm while carrying a dragon shoot in his palm. This one was quite different from any he had released so far. It was scarlet red and had dark rings surrounding it. "Nice to meet you, Sekiryu Hyoudou," Issei was what Kabal said. "I guess this is the last technique, right?" After that, the look on both of them became completely serious. "Stars light supernova," said Kabal. "Overboosted dragon shoot," seriously mentioned the chestnut. Both techniques collided and the explosion covered the entire pocket dimension until it began to fragment. Boom. Drops of blood fell to the ground. There were feathers and scales covered in blood on the ground. The pair of eyes opened, they were amber in color. His armor was completely destroyed and his hair was no longer brown, but black like the night itself. His dragon wings were completely destroyed and blood was coming out of his forehead. Suddenly his hair returned to its original color. On the other side his eyes opened heavily, there was nothing left of his beloved armor, that armor that resisted the relentless attacks of the biblical god, was totally consumed by the clash of powers, as well as his own wings. He noticed it by the stump, he lost his entire left arm and half of the other. He noticed that his vision was blurry in one of his eyes. No, his vision was zero, he lost his eye in the explosion. Though something in particular, there was absolutely nothing apart from the ground that the two of them were stepping on. The pocket dimension did not completely survive as it was falling to pieces, and they would soon be expelled. However, he laughed a little when he noticed that the phoenix tears he had in his pants broke and healed most of his wounds. "If this had happened in the human world," gasp of tiredness, "half the planet would have perished instantly," said the fallen one. "You must be joking, there would be no planet left to inhabit," said the brown-haired man seriously. "Even if the explosion had not destroyed it, the shock wave would have incinerated every living being on the ground and would have burned all the oxygen in the atmosphere," said the brown-haired man. Kabal looked at him with a raised eyebrow. "You're exaggerating, brat, stop watching so many science fiction series, that would have barely wiped out half of the Asian continent. On the other hand, the tsunami in the west would have been fatal," said the fallen man. Suddenly they were expelled from the pocket dimension, ending up on the ground where they were at the beginning of their fight. Then Kabal noticed those violet eyes that looked at him annoyed. "I guess it's over," said Kabal resignedly. "Under other circumstances I would let you live, this is not one." Without further ado, Azazel decapitated Kabal. Chapter 16. Hades calmly watched his beloved grandson as he ran with his fist raised towards Rhadamanthys, who stopped the blow, only to be knocked back a couple of meters. He smiled proudly at the brutal strength he had at only 6 years old. Ice, the little one, was called by his half-sister Hela, who extended her arms to him. The little one did not hesitate to run towards her. The little one lovingly hugged his dear half-sister. "You are so strong, little one," she said, while the little one touched her face with his hands, and she smiled at him. "Uncle, a pair of wolves," shouted before Issei flew through the air with the pair of wolves and fell into the grass of the Elysian fields. Before the incredulous gaze of those souls who arrived there, most let out a small laugh at the occurrences of the little one as he took Hadi by the paw to spin him around several times and throw him into the air, while Skoll laughed only to be thrown himself. "That pair," said Fenrir next to Hela. "You can't blame them, they love him very much," replied the beautiful goddess. "If that snake weren't so lazy, I'd enjoy him and his antics a little," said the wolf as he smiled as he watched Issei carry the pair of wolves in his arms, only to fall from the weight. "True," Hela said, smiling. "I can't believe he'll remove your curse so easily," Fenrir said seriously. "Yes, I wish Narfi and Vari had met him," Hela said in a melancholic tone. "That's why I devoured Baldur's soul," the wolf said with a snort of hatred at the mention of that name. "Ingraboda, Sigyn, I hope you regret it," Hela said with hatred as a light layer of dark greenish aura surrounded her. "Ingraboda, the giantess who gave us life and then abandoned us to our cursed fate. Because of her, we fell into the hands of the Aesir Dam Odin Dam Tur Dam Vidar," the wolf mentioned with enormous hatred, although it did not last long as a small chestnut tree jumped onto his back. Nai-san run, the boy shouted while Fenrir smiled and ran with the brown-haired boy on top at a moderate speed, only for Garm to take the little boy with his little arm and lift him up to run away from Fenrir, who got upset and chased after the Ice Guardian. Finally Cerber snatched Issei from them to take him to his mother, who didn't look very happy, let's say. Ella burst out laughing as she watched the little brown-haired boy run away from his mother in terror. "Ice die," Arya said as Issei rested on her lap and gave her a strawberry with whipped cream, which the brunette enjoyed. Azazel watched this with curiosity while beside him was the corpse of that friend of his, who was now nothing more than a traitor. When I thought about walking towards them, I noticed a certain aura in the place, and I saw that the couple noticed it, but they didn't care. The blinding light appeared and there in that place was the Seraph Michael. He looked at him and was clearly annoyed, but he didn't even have time to speak to him when a magic circle appeared and Surzich's Lucifer came out of it. "I see that the three leaders have come here," said Surzich's Lucifer as he looked at Kakabiel's corpse. "Apparently you decided to take care of him arbitrarily, without consulting anyone," he mentioned, slightly annoyed. "He is a traitor, he killed several of our people and almost killed one of the leaders," Barakiel said, Azazel looking at the corpse with hatred. "You say the Kakabiel acted on his own? What evidence do you have to prove that?" Michael said seriously, but the three leaders suddenly felt chills as the darkness of the place increased, and without further ado, they saw several specters of Hades in the place commanded by Nyx. "That bird is not lying," said the goddess contemptuously, "or am I wrong, Hades-sama?" she said, and between the trees a skeleton with ornaments and a golden center gave them a rather sinister look. "You're not wrong, Dix. On the other hand, I hope you biblical brats don't try to generate a conflict here in the human world. Humans have already suffered a lot because of you," mentioned the father of all riches, looking at the three leaders who were on the defensive. "What the hell are you doing here, Hades?" Azazel said, completely on guard along with several fallen angels. "Obviously stop any attempt at war between you brats. I've said it before, I won't allow humans to suffer from a war that shouldn't affect them. They are imperfect and fight each other all the time, but the gods are here to protect them from threats, and right now you are one against them, or at least until they calm down," mentioned Hades. After those words the three leaders were only a little calmer, but there was still tension between them. "I see you took care of him on your own, Azazel," mentioned a voice in the air, making everyone look at the sky, where a white armor with blue gems and mechanical wings slowly landed next to the fallen one. "That's right, Volley," Azazel said seriously, hoping that the two dragons would not start a battle. "I say ah," said Rias, not caring much about the tense atmosphere in the place. The brown-haired boy did as requested, being fed by the redeed, which caused a drop of sweat to break out in Hades, who hid it very well. Surzich's somehow let out a small laugh, but he pulled himself together as he remembered something in particular that made him and Michael become alert, as the two celestial dragons were in the same place. "You're ignoring me, Red," I suddenly mentioned the gems of the vanishing dragon's armor. "Something wrong with it, White. I'm enjoying a break, don't bother," I mentioned the red dragon from the boosted gear that had manifested. "You seem little interested in my presence, I guess like me you found something of interest," I mentioned the white. "As I said, I'm enjoying a break, I don't feel like fighting or talking. See you later." Without further ado, the boosted gear vanished. "You're so boring, Drake," the white dragon mentioned with displeasure. "The two celestial dragons of this generation are peculiar," Azazel mentioned. "For once, I agree with you, brat," Hades replied. At that the bronze knights landed near Issei, only for the leaders to be a little surprised. "The Knights of Athena," Surzich's Lucifer mentioned with a raised eyebrow. "I guess she sent them to stop this, am I wrong?" Hades mentioned calmly to the dismay of the rest. "Athena does not want there to be war," said the chestnut tree. "I see," Hades said as he looked at the leaders. "Well. Will you discuss this like civilized people in a meeting, or will you just fight like crazy without looking at the consequences?" Hades mentioned in a stern tone. "A meeting would sound good, I would go." Surprisingly, Issei was the one who said that as he got up from his girlfriend's lap. "What are you saying, Azazel?" the hacker Yuku mentioned. "If the rest agree, I agree too," said the fallen one, looking at the other leaders. "At the Kuo Academy in 2 weeks," said Surzich's Lucifer, putting the place and date. "Okay," Michael said as he watched a pair of exorcists arrive with 2 demons. "Michael-sama," Irina shouted in surprise. "I see that you have recovered the fragments of the Excalibur," he mentioned, smiling to look at the pair with a smile. "We are leaving, see you in 2 weeks, I will be in contact with you," Michael mentioned seriously. "I'll be there," the father of all riches mentioned to everyone's surprise. "I'm sure Athena will too," he said, looking at the bronze knights who were in attendance. "Well, I'll leave," after saying that he left in a magic circle. "We also retreated, there are still traitors who must be punished," Azazel mentioned with annoyance as he left the place in a magic circle. "See you Sekiryuite Haidu," Issei mentioned the subject of the armor. "Whatever you say, Hakuryuku Vali, I don't know your last name, so excuse me," said the brown-haired boy so that the guy in the armor would attend. Until fate takes its place, said the subject taking flight and disappearing in a magic circle. Rias Tan, I'm glad you're okay, Surziches said, only to be ignored. Let's go home, Issei said, smiling, creating a magic circle under the two of them and their entourage. Issei nodded only to look at Surziches with a cold look. Let's go, there's nothing to do here, he said, and without further ado they left the place. Surziches sighed sadly. Rias is still very upset with you and your parents, Surziches Sama Sona mentioned. Get out of here, Sona-san, we'll take care of this, Surziches said sadly. The aforementioned one, along with her entourage, withdrew, leaving the Mao Lucifer alone in the place, while the demons who accompanied him began with the repairs of the place. Forgive me, Rias, I'm really sorry, thought the Mao Lucifer sadly. What to say? The brown-haired boy appeared with Rias and her entourage in the occult club room. The Redeed did not hesitate for a second to hug the brown-haired boy, and he began to comfort her by caressing her back, while Akeno for her part, sat with the others being comforted by Kaneko, who saw her wanting to cry. She came to her mother, but that would not bring her back. Suddenly a magic circle appeared in the club room. Issei stared at Rias and Akeno. Let's go to my house, senpai, said Issei, while Rias took Akeno by the hand, and the two together entered the magic circle and retreated to appear in the Hyoudou mansion. Issei-san, a sweet voice was heard that froze Issei in place, who mechanically turned just to look her in the eyes. Chapter 17. He's growing stronger and stronger, I'm honestly proud of him, said a black-haired boy with a tender smile, as he watched a brown-haired boy sleep peacefully. I know, love, but you know I'm scared, she said with a sad look. Me too, I'm afraid they'll find him, said Loki, as he trembled with rage and anger could be seen in his eyes. Damn Aesir, he said out loud. Those damn gods are a danger to our little one, Freodin and Thor, as well as Zeus, Apollo and Poseidon, said the now black-haired girl, as her anger was almost about to explode. If those bastards even try anything with little Issei, I myself will show them what true fear is, said a voice, while a man wearing a feathered and fur outfit walked seriously until he was in front of the child. I McClanta Cutley will not allow them to touch my dear godson, he mentioned, while lovingly caressing the infant's hair, who smiled while sleeping. Fenrir could be seen growling loudly towards a long white-haired man with a long white beard wearing golden armor as he stared with his single eye at the brown-haired youth in front of him. Ragnarok, it was incomprehensible what he said except for the last thing, and after that he pierced Issei's chest, while Fenrir screamed his name in anger, and blood ran from his chest. Suddenly Issei looked to his side. What that had been, he didn't know, but at his sides, he noticed a blonde and a Redeed, who were driving him crazy, hugging him. He remembered what had happened after arriving from his battle against Kabal. Issei sent a sweet voice was heard that froze Issei in his place, who mechanically turned around just to look her in the eyes. She smiled sweetly at him as only she could do. Asia the chestnut mentioned happily before the gaze of the two females behind him. Ah, you must be Rias-san, right, he said without erasing his smile. On the contrary, it seemed that it grew even more. Hi, Rias said softly as the tension rose a little in the room. I'm glad to meet you, thank you for making Issei-san happy, she said with a cute smile, while Rias smiled a little. Let's talk, Rias-san, said the blonde as she took her hand and they left the room. Issei-kun is such a rascal, hiding a relationship with Rias Butchu when he's engaged to her, what a bad boy. Makeno-senpai, Rias and Asia already knew about each other, said the brown-haired boy scratching his cheek, but the brown-haired boy saw a specter come to his side and kneel down. Issei-sama, I'm glad you're okay, he said without noticing Akeno. Issei muttered in an annoyed tone. Issei-kun, what does that mean? Akeno said uncertainly and the specter tensed up. I am Hades' grandson, he said while Akeno opened her eyes in shock. Issei sighed in defeat. In the end he had to reveal his lineage to his senpai, and to top it off. Son, breakfast is ready. Oh, how clumsy, I didn't notice you were so busy, hehe, said a black-haired man with glasses with a mocking smile. First pull up your fly and then make fun of someone else, said Issei smiling mockingly. Don't try to lie to a liar, son, said Loki. Loki-sama, your son is not lying to you, Vincent said behind him, and Loki looked at his fly, seeing that it was closed to look at his son smiling slyly, but he smiled. I'm an idiot, an illusion, he said, and vanished with a mocking smile. You idiot, said the brown-haired boy smiling defeatedly, destroying Vincent's illusion, and then raising his two girlfriends who resignedly got out of bed. After arriving at the dining room, Issei noticed the angry look on the part of his Aunt Hera, but at the same time he saw that she understood at least a little that he loved them both. On the other hand, Akeno looked sad. She managed to avenge her mother, but deep down, she knew that this would not bring her back. You'll go see her after school, she's in the Champs-Élysées, said the brown-haired boy with Rias and Asia at his sides, putting both their heads on the brown-haired boy's chest. Akeno opened her eyes in surprise and then nodded enthusiastically. She wanted to see her even if it was one last time. Asia-chan, Rias-chan, have some of my special sweet and sour chicken, said a nosy Redeed. The blonde answered happily, but the brown-haired boy moved forward taking both plates. "I-san," he said with doubt seeing his action. "Asia, Rias say ah," said the brown-haired boy taking 2 spoons and feeding them both. Asia blushed intensely but opened her mouth hoping to try that delicious morsel. Rias looked at the spoon shyly, but like the blonde she gladly accepted the bite. Both opened their eyes at the delicious flavor that their palates were tasting. "Ice die ah," said his mother handing him a bite. His words were drowned out by his father's surprise attack with a spoon from the other side of the table, which had successfully launched the food into his mouth. The black-haired man shouted only to be sent to the ground by a powerful blow to the head from his daughter, Hella, although it turned out that the black-haired man was behind Issei with a mocking smile. After that, the brown-haired boy and the Redeed, accompanied by Akeno, went to the Kuo Academy on foot because the couple wanted to enjoy holding hands, or that was until a silver-haired boy got in their field of vision. "Hi do Issei, Securute Welsh Dragon, we finally meet face to face," said the silver-haired man as the air around him grew colder. "Oh, it's just you vanishing dragon, I have more important things to attend to like the classes that I do go to," said the brown-haired boy smiling playfully. "I'll be brief, where do you think you are in the world rating?" Then he noticed the doubtful face of the brown-haired man. "Even with your balance breaker, you must be between the 800th and 1000th places, maybe more," he said with boredom, and then became serious, "although I doubt it, because of the way Kabal finished, I estimate that your place is 820, said the silver-haired man. "I don't care about that, you know, because I've never actually shown my true power, and in fact I myself don't know my own limits," said the brown-haired boy playfully. "Maybe that's true, but anyway he was interrupted by a sword at his neck. "I won't let you start a battle with the Securute here," said Kiba as he looked at him intensely while behind him, he had a keno with lightning in her hands. "You didn't do anything against Kabal, what makes you think you have a chance?" the silver-haired boy said boredly. "Even though your fight with Fignel was good, you didn't do it alone. As for you, I've heard that you created a sword capable of destroying Excalibur, but you're nothing special." Issei waved his hand and everyone stood behind Issei. "Let me finish talking, this matter is between him and me. I do say you are a diamond in the rough asking to be polished, and with the proper training you could become strong enough, or don't you think so, Rias Gremory?" she said, while the Redeed stood next to the brown-haired boy and took his hand. "I trust in my boyfriend's strength and I know what he is capable of doing, so I ask you to refrain from fighting with him, since he doesn't usually have a fight for more than a few seconds, and I have never seen him fight with his full strength," said Rias with a serious look. "Interesting," said the silver-haired man. "I just came to say hello today, so I'll see you at the Hyoudou Issei faction meeting," he said as he walked away from there. "Imbecile," Issei said staring at him. "A hybrid demon will not defeat me." After that he began to walk with Rias holding hands, while they were followed by Akeno and Kiba, who were quite tense about the situation, especially Akeno knowing the brown-haired boy's ancestry. "Look, Rias-on-sama is holding hands with Issei-sama," said one girl to another as they watched the pair arrive at the academy. "Damn that bastard Hyoudou with Rias-sama, why do rich kids always have the best?" a student said to his classmate. "I don't know, you tell me," he said in a sarcastic tone. "Rias-on-sama is dating Issei-sama Kai," shouted a group of fans of the couple. Ignoring the rest, the couple entered the campus to look into each other's eyes. "I'll see you at lunch, honey," said the brown-haired boy, taking the Redeed by the chin to slowly give her a kiss full of emotions that the Redeed couldn't even finish deducing, but fascinated her greatly. "Ice," said the Redeed in a sweet and loving tone, and then left accompanied by Akeno. "But you looks very happy," said Kiba next to Issei. "I want to make her even happier," said the brown-haired boy. "She deserves to truly feel what love is." "I'm worried about what might happen today," said the brown-haired boy with regret. "It's parent observation day but you will have it hard," said the blonde. "That's what worries me. See you later, Kiba," said the brown-haired boy as he left the place towards his classroom. Later. The brown-haired boy was looking at the video camera that his father was holding in his hands while giving him a thumbs up. Next to him his mother was shaking her head at her husband's mischievous attitude, and then he was. "Let's go Ice-chan, go go go," a very excited Redeed shouted while waving a couple of pom-poms, and next to her a woman with very dark green hair waved a couple of flags with the name of the brown-haired boy. "The Avesta, Nissan, stop please," said the brunette with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. The teacher began his class by giving the students some clay cubes so they could shape them into whatever they wanted. Oh, that's bullshit," Issei's father said excitedly. "Like shut up," Issei's mother told him angrily. "It's poop," Hestia said loudly. "What a shit," said Mitsuda next to him laughing. "It was old to make the clay figure with your hands, not with your butt, hahaha," laughed Motohama, looking at the fecal-looking clay figure that Issei had made, while he lowered his head defeated and sighed, while the master looked at this with a drop of sweat on the back of his neck. Later. Rias walked furiously and hurriedly, behind her came a brunette identical to her who tried to stop her, however Rias tripped and began to fall, but a pair of arms held her. "I'm Sama, be careful," said a certain hazel-eyed brown-haired man. Rias blushed hard as she looked at him shyly before remembering who she was running away from, so she stood behind Issei. "Ice, that crazy girl is chasing me," she said, burying her face in the young man's back. "As you told me, I'm your mother, respect me," said the brunette. "Respect is earned, Rias Gremory," said the brown-haired boy seriously as he went to hug his beloved. "What a mess we've made here, although not as much as what you did in your class, son," said a black-haired boy mockingly, only to receive a blow to the head from his wife. "I wanted to meet the young man who took my daughter from me, but I see that now I have the opportunity to meet his parents," Rias said seriously. "I'm not your daughter anymore, you sold me to the worst person you could find because of your fear of contradicting my father in his stupid decisions," Rias screamed only for Issei to hug her tightly and lovingly and then look at Rias. "This is neither the time nor the place to discuss this," said the brown-haired boy only for his mother to step forward. "Let's talk at my house. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.